Good morning and welcome to Grog Talk. I'm James.
I'm Dan.
And for those who are watching us live or later on YouTube, you will see there's a little figure like over here somewhere. And this is one of our good friends from down under, the Chamberlain, His August Potency.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I didn't know. Archduke, well I didn't know that was going to happen. Archduke, the shrewd guardian of Australia.
Mr. David Thompson.
I shouldn't even have to look.
Thank you.
We should have it memorized by now.
Right. I mean, we always split the title because the title is so long. No, I don't have enough breath.
You run out of breath. We're too old.
I have enough breath to say it out. David, how are you this morning?
I am fine, thank you, sirs.
Good, good. Well, so David has decided to join us as we talk about fighters today in our continuing series, Playing with Class, in first edition. So we have gone over clerics and druids, and one of our other dear friends, which I don't have his title, from East Orlando, Ron Christopher, remind us that we talked about clerics, so we didn't even talk about turning. We forgot about talking about turning. It was on our list.
Oh my! I didn't look at the list.
And you know we have loyal people who watch us because they didn't put it down.
We should do a quick. Should we do a quick segment on that? Wait, can we mention we're coming from the Green Dragon Inn in Port Town?
Oh, we're not still in Suderham?
Oh man, I forgot about that.
So we were so drunk that they threw us out of the Suderham. And where are we at?
That's why this was here. We're at the Green Dragon Inn in Port Town.
Oh, okay.
That's from the home sample dungeon.
Oh, very good. Yes, because you've been reading that.
Exactly.
You're preparing for December
7th, I think.
The day that will live in infamy.
Exactly, my game.
Your game. No.
It was. I liken your D&D game to Pearl Harbor.
That's right. Surprise attack of D&D. Well, very good. And how's that going so far? Just real quick segue. How are you liking reading the basic from Holmes edition?
And I don't know if either of you played Holmes. You didn't play Holmes at all.
No.
Dave, did you ever play the Holmes edition, basic D&D?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
you did?
Just only for one session.
Right. And so what I've noticed is that one of the things that there's a little bit of controversy about, or that people don't like, is that there is no variable weapon damage. All weapon damage is
all D6.
All D6, and that would be okay, but Dr. Holmes says that some weapons attack twice in a round, and some only every other round. So a two-handed sword is every other round. A dagger is twice a round. So why in the world wouldn't you use a dagger and attack twice every round with a DC?
What are you, power gamer? You min-maxer?
No, you've taught me that I need to approach DMing understanding that there's going to be power gamers.
That's right. Everyone would have a dagger. That's all we would carry.
That's right. You've got that look in your face. You're like, this is awesome.
That's right.
I want to play Holmes.
I want to play Holmes.
Give me a dagger.
Give me daggers.
2 daggers.
2 magic
4
plus
attacks.
1 daggers. That's awesome.
So
give everyone else 2-handed swords. Life would be good. I love it.
Well, what I think what we do is we talk about clerics, and then you spend, because you're going to have a lot of time off with the hurricane, spend all that time splicing this segment into the last episode.
No, we're not going to do that. I'm taking a page out of your book, Dan, which is The Past is Past. I don't even remember what we talked about.
That's right.
And we're moving forward.
Okay.
So, but today we're going to talk about fighters. That's what's going to be on our Word of Recall segment. But we do have our I think these are fan favorites, random encounter and spell selection. These are
I like them.
Dan initiated, fan approved. So we're going to do our random encounter. So I think the Chamberlain should roll for us for the random encounter.
Yeah, because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
That's why
perhaps the dice spinning upside down. You know, everything's upside down there.
Oh yeah, that's right. The dice roll the other way.
Right, they roll like
just the perception of upside down.
Right. Well, the toilets spin the other way, right? So the dice would be spinning.
We should get a shot of that later.
Yeah.
Confirm that.
I'm sure. Well, supposedly
We can arrange for that.
he's got a clearance today. He's got an unlimited time. Only sleep deprivation is preventing him from functioning. So, all right, David, when you're ready, what is he rolling?
We need a D10, right? Because we need to figure out where we are adventuring.
Yeah, roll a D10.
Dungeon.
D10?
D10, please.
6.
Oh, we're outdoors.
Oh, good. Maybe it's a waterborne adventure, like we're in the hurricane. That would be.
Oh no, I think that's actually is that a separate?
Is that a separate?
No, that's aquatic.
Okay,
aquatic's not considered outdoors.
All right, we're outdoors. So what does he have to roll now?
Okay, he has to roll a. Hang on. D6 to find out what region. Temperate.
Yep. 3.
Okay. A temperate wilderness. This sounds good.
What could be possibly wrong in the temperate wilderness?
Now, of course, we need the classic.
That's right.
What
so
is it?
we need a D12 and a D8 and add the values. Yep, there you go.
Yep.
We trust you.
All good. I'm all sorted.
I love how our listeners always have dice right next to them.
They're ready to go.
13.
13. Ooh, slightly above average.
Oh, wait a second. I screwed up already.
What?
Before you do that, we're going to keep the 13. Silly me thinking you would only take 3 rolls.
Right.
You need a D6 because we need to find out where in the temperate wilderness.
Where in the temperate wilderness?
All right.
So D6, and then we'll keep
the 13.
4.
4.
Okay, we're swamp and marsh.
Swamp and marsh in a temperate forest.
13 is?
Do you want me to re-roll the 12 and 8, or are you happy
No,
with
let's see.
the
What
13?
is it?
You sure you don't want to reroll?
I don't know. What is it?
It's an orc.
Oh,
Shambling Mound.
that's right. No.
Oh,
Orc. What's wrong with an orc?
There's nothing wrong with an orc.
That's what he rolled.
Okay.
Well, you want? Let's.
orcs are everywhere.
Yeah, roll again, just in case, because he.
Roll again.
Yeah.
We don't like orcs.
Well, that's fine. D8, D12, because
is
we
gonna
didn't
be
do this in order.
This is going to be a controversy, don't you
Right.
think?
9.
9, probably orc.
Giant toad.
Ah.
How about we have a giant toad attacking an orc and we
Yes.
talk about this happening?
Okay, that's
All
fine.
right, a giant
giant toad is
And
attacking.
what's an orc doing in a swamp or marsh?
Man, they go everywhere.
Yeah,
they
do.
go everywhere.
Yeah,
They're just carrion crawlers almost.
he's a swamp orc.
Yeah.
All right.
There must be one.
Okay, so here's the.
So is it toad or is it?
No, it's
was it
it's
orc?
We're doing both. The
Giant
giant toad is
toad.
attacking.
An orc is walking through the swamp. This is going to be This is going to blend into an incomprehensible death segment.
Right. Giant toad.
It's like a joke.
For the poor. You're right.
There's orcs wandering through the swamp.
So an orc and a giant toad going to a bar. So
All right, so I'll look up the giant toad. You guys look up the orc.
So which one? A giant toad? Be poisonous toad or a giant toad?
it says giant toad.
As far as I know, it's
Giant toad.
giant toad.
So let me ask you,
All right.
David, do you know any of the backstory between why the orcs ended up being pig-faced, right? Because are pig-faced orcs only in first edition? Do you know?
Yep.
That's it. So,
But I don't actually know. Yeah, you mentioned it ages ago, where if anyone could get in touch with the original people.
yeah,
I think
I'm still waiting.
I actually think it might have been the artists. I think the artists might have just said, "Okay, we need an orc, draw an orc," and because and the way they go. I don't know if they actually had a physical description on half of these creatures anyway.
And I believe in the cover page to Holmes Basic. So not the page with the famous page with the dragon, but there's a little battle scene, and I believe the orcs are pig-faced too. And so I wonder if it was the same artist.
I was sort of stunning because in second ed they weren't pig-faced. They'd started to become almost like mutated humans.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if you look in page 300 and 301 in the wonderful Art and Arcana
Oh,
book,
I was looking for it, and you were holding it.
that's right, page 300, 301, they have the... I'll show it to you, David. There's the various types of orcs. And then I'll show it to our friends on the internet.
Yeah,
Here.
so the one that's on
awesome.
the
Great idea.
The page on the top right there corner there on the first page, that's the first edition orc, where the actual pikes and pig face in the top right
There's
corner.
the original.
Oh, yes.
There's
So
first edition.
so they weren't pig-faced in OD&D.
Right.
And, well, obviously I'm partial to first edition. I think I talk about it
Yeah, that's
at
the
all?
only thing. Yeah, that's only they just talk about the little blurb here.
Oh, okay.
They released the Wizards of the Coast released a pack where they had the old pig-faced
Yes.
orcs in just recently, like in about the last 12 to 18 months or something like that.
Okay.
And Otherworld Miniatures, I believe, has pig-face too.
Yeah, well, it
Okay.
is. It is.
All right, so it's a giant toad versus an orc, huh?
Yep, that's how we're rolling here.
So what's the frequency of an orc?
Ubiquitous.
How common can you get?
That's right. But what I love is the number appearing. I mean, we've already been through this. You can adjust this, so you don't. If you get orc on a random encounter, you don't have to roll the 30 to 300.
300 of them. I'll just have 300 orcs. Thanks for coming.
I'm running.
I'm going to roll 30 d10. I'm going to roll 30 d10 and work out how many orcs I've got.
So let me ask you about the damage. So damage to attack 1 to 8 or by weapon. Does that mean that is the 1 to 8 mean that if you don't want to care about what weapon, or does it mean if they don't have? That's what I would think, right? It doesn't mean they don't have a weapon, right?
No. It's just if you just want to go, it's a random encounter orc. Yeah, whatever.
Right.
Longsword, D8, done. Thanks.
Right.
Although, actually, because if you look at their, because it just says sword and flail, sword and spear, axe and spear, they've just says sword. But generally, if it says D8, I'm thinking you're probably looking at long swords. And statistically speaking, it probably improves the survival of a party with a long sword rather than a broadsword, which is 2d4, because then you're actually looking at doing an average of 5 hit points as opposed to an even spread of just D8 across, 1 to 12.5% chance for each unit. So, because if you have the broadsword, you're looking at doing mega damage at low levels,
Right?
just because of because you've got the multiple dice you're rolling rather than just a single die.
And we said giant toad, right, as opposed to giant frog.
Yeah.
And let me before.
Go
ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, because it says toad giant as the overall description, but then you've got giant toad as a subcategory of a giant toad.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go with giant toad within the giant toad. And so in this battle, it's not really fair because, first of all, the frequency of a giant toad is the same as an orc, which makes sense since we rolled 9 out of 13. And they are 2 + 4 hit dice versus the lowly orc, which is 1 hit dice. And the big claim to fame is they can hop and then attack in midair at the end of their leap. So that's pretty amazing.
Oh, so yeah, so look, can we talk a little bit about the difference between a giant toad and a giant frog?
Right.
Like the frog are the ones that
swallow and
that have the tongue that comes out and grabs you and pulls you in. So the toad just swallows you.
Well, it attacks you. Yeah.
I assume by eating you, right? Because I see this, of course, the classic picture. You've got the poor.
Right. So also that the toad has at the bottom for those who are. That's what makes the monster manual the best.
It really does
because it's instructional.
I just want a book. The Art of Arcana I want is just taking all the pictures of PCs being killed and eaten and.
Yeah, but you actually need that sometimes just to know. Is that how that monster attacks?
Well, that's true. That's true. Illustration.
Because how would you do the toad? Okay, it swallows them whole, obviously.
Well, hello, Nico. How are you? We got Nico here now. Our production goblin has a week off has days off from school thanks to our impending destruction.
So can I be the orc?
Yes, you can be the orc. You want to run combat with us?
Yeah.
The thing is that you've got the giant toad with 2 + 4 hit dice, right? So 2 hit dice, then with +4. That puts them at a to hit armor class 0 or something like about 17 or something.
Right. That's about right.
No?
Versus the orcs 19 off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's
so what you're saying is I'm an underdog?
Yeah. Are you the orc?
I'm the orc.
So David, do you want to be the giant toad in this?
Sure.
All right, so,
I'll be
let's roll. Let's roll. I'll be the DM. Let's roll.
Don't tell him how many.
Rolling initiative or surprise?
No, roll it. Let's see.
He needs his hit dice.
Yeah, of course. We should roll surprise first. So.
Oh, we also need hit points. I have hit points.
I see your hit points. I'll accept that as your hit points.
We're not telling you how many I have, so it'll be a surprise if I'm still alive. You're like, what? This orc is crazy.
Let's see. There's no advantage to surprise here, at least with toads, as opposed to frogs, which is a. So just you all roll a d6 for a surprise.
Yep.
So I'm just walking through and I'm hearing ribbit.
I got a 4. Do you want to see the 4?
No, you're good. This is honor system. 6. All right. So neither of you. So apparently, David's toad is on hanging in a swamp, and you look at each other and you see lunch, and now it's initiative.
I'm a member of the.
Are you declaring actions?
Bloody Head tribe. Just let you know.
Are you part of the
I'm gonna hop
Bloody Head tribe
and attack it. I'm gonna hop and attack.
And you are going to die horribly.
No, I'm going to attack.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, roll d6 for initiative. So high is better.
Wait, should I parlay?
No.
Action goblin. Should I parlay?
He got a 2.
What's my charisma? I'm rolling my charisma.
You have to win. You have to do initiative.
You have to win initiative. You can't just parlay before.
I know, but I'm declaring action though.
Okay.
Should I declare? I have a 13 charisma. Can I even have that as an orc?
Yes, you can.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to parlay. I'm attacking.
Okay, well.
All right. Initiative?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
Well, you lost initiative.
I got 2.
You got
a
2.
I got a 1.
He got a 1. All right. So, what's your armor class?
But we're both 6.
Okay, he's a 6. All right. So
wait, I need to roll my number appearing. Where's
no? There's not number appearing. There's 1.
Action goblin. How do I do 30 to 300?
No. You take 3 to
Army. I'm the advanced guard.
You're the scout.
Yes. There's more coming, man.
You
better hop away. You might eat me, but you better get moving. You better swallow me fast.
AC6?
I will, don't worry.
AC6? Okay. So you're going to move your movement. We'll say you're within hopping range.
Well,
So
within
he's-
12 feet, yeah.
Wait, so I need to see it. So
If we're within 12, if we're within 12 feet of each other, that's not a problem. I've got a 6-inch. I can do a segment of 6 move and a hop of 6 move. So
what did we roll?
within one segment, I've got
Weren't
12.
we supposed to roll distance?
Yeah, so
DM?
he's going to want me to roll distance. Hold on.
All right,
He's
10 to 20 feet.
that would-
That's the rule. The rule is 10 to 20 feet.
That would be great if you came hopping and you just landed like just short.
All right. So, Dan, since we think you're at a disadvantage, roll D6.
Okay. 5.
Both of you are 100 yards away. No, 90 yards away. So you're 9 inches for
what's his
outside
hop?
movement. So his hop is 12.
I can tell. Oh, I can tell by that finger that was good for him. All right.
it's like-
Ah!
He can see. Yeah, he saw you and he moves forward and now he's going to leap on you. So you're hopping on him. You're 2 plus something hit dice. You need a 10 or better to hit AC6.
So like he's like in air, his mouth is starting to open.
Right.
Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like
Yeah.
Okay.
You're just walking by. You thought about parlaying, but then you see this giant maw about to eat you.
So sorry, what do I need to
A
hit?
10 or above.
Oh jeez, it's not good.
Oh, I got a 3.
Ah!
Okay,
Yeah.
so he missed.
This isn't like the newer versions of the game where everyone rolls natural 20s.
No, that's
Now
right.
I had my pole arm set.
You know, you did not have it.
didn't?
First of all, what kind of weapon do you have?
We're just gonna do the 1 to 8, whatever. Like the default.
Oh, you're not going to roll the percentages?
yeah,
to
let's
see?
do it. You're right. I
you
love
got-
random.
Jesus.
Okay, let's do it.
You may have a spear. I'll give you a chance to have a spear.
Go ahead,
Oh,
the
that'd
spear.
be- I might be.
Crossbow.
A 3, a sword and a flail.
That's what you have. Okay. Which weapon are you using?
Can I ask?
And you wanna
Can I
use
ask the
fire.
frog which one's better?
No, you cannot.
Probably want to use the flail.
You can ask the frog,
Is
but
he
the toad.
tricking me? Can I
The
trust
toad
him?
is attacking you. The frog's not going to
no
help
frog. No.
you. You can ask the frog. That's your turn. You just
toad.
wasted your action. No. Okay.
Parlaying.
Parlaying.
Terribly.
Terrible.
Trying to parlay with a frog.
Okay. So you're using your sword or your flail?
Flail's 2 to 5 damage. So
And
Fine.
swords what?
Well, I assume
What
it's
kind of
a.
sword is
well,
it?
what
It doesn't say it. Let's see.
doesn't say.
It might be a broad.
You'd want a broadsword.
Wait, don't I roll for
24.
the type of sword? Isn't there a
Yes,
roll
of course.
for
Yeah,
that?
roll percentages. Let's use the magic item table. So 70% are long
Yeah, the
swords.
magic is it.
Use a
That's what I love about 1E.
70% is
Endless
long sword.
charts.
Hopefully it's something. Yes, you have a long sword.
Oh, that's 1 to 8, isn't it? What is that?
It's 1 to 8. Yes.
All right, I'm gonna take 1. I'm gonna take 1 to 8. That sounds like a better average. than 2 to 5.
You're a power gaming orc. Oh, this is disgusting. But okay, roll your attack.
I should have told you what I had out.
Well, I'm assuming you drew your weapon as the toad was launching on you with his mouth open, and now
I
you're
did.
going to strike
All right.
back.
All
So
right.
you need a 13.
13.
A 6.
6. Well, this is first edition. Okay, both attacks swing what?
So now we roll
That's
initiative
right, it
again.
is
Here we
initiative.
go.
Wait,
Round
we
two.
gotta declare.
Yes, declare actions. What?
I attack you.
Okay, I'm gonna stay in attack.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so roll initiative.
Yes.
5.
Oh, I got a 6.
Oh, come
there you go.
on.
The frog. This frog is
Frog.
hungry. A toad. Yeah, a toad is hungry. I'm sorry, you're not a
Yeah.
frog. I shouldn't insult you by calling you a toad. A frog. Go ahead.
What is he? He's a
Yes.
toad.
Roll an attack.
Giant toad.
Giant toad.
Roll an attack. I got a 7.
7.
Missed.
He's terrified
2
by you.
hours later.
That's right. Go ahead. We're not gonna talk about fighting. We're just gonna fight.
Oh, 17.
17. Very good. Very good. Okay, D8.
Are you doing? Do I get a chance of critical? Are you using
No,
good hits and bad misses? What,
No,
what do I need?
No, D8.
All right.
No, first edition. What is this? What's this? 1E now?
4.
4. So you see, unfortunately for
he
David's toad, he was
I got-
struck. So,
9. Oh, I've got 9 hit points. I'd rolled 9 before. You.
oh wow, he only has
Did you-
9 hit points.
Oh,
already
he's
rolled
in
hit
trouble.
points.
2 plus 4 is you got 9 hit points total. Wow,
Yeah.
wow. So,
That first edition, man. You're rolling dice.
yeah, that's okay. So
If I win this battle, I'm eating the frog.
yeah, well
The
then
toad.
then you'll find out he's poisonous and you'll die, but you don't know that at this point.
That was good.
Okay, so David's giant toad was gashed on the side for 4 points, and now it's initiative.
All
Round
right, I
3.
declare.
You're declaring.
I'm attacking.
Okay.
I got a 1.
Okay, you got 1.
1.
Oh, simultaneous initiative. Excellent. Okay,
Does
so
that matter? He doesn't have a weapon, so you
Kill
would.
each other.
No,
You
you,
wouldn't use weapons
both
speed here?
attacks happen
Got it.
simultaneously.
All right, so we roll at the same time. Let's do it.
Go ahead, roll it.
15.
15. What'd you roll?
5.
5. You are lucky today. Australian dice are not playing. Okay, you hit again.
Oh. Can I adopt this guy as a character if he
Yeah,
wins?
this character's way better than
I'm
any
keeping him.
character.
Anything I've ever had before.
So D8.
Much better than Pixie.
D8.
How many's he got left?
Well, he has. We don't know that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Shh.
7.
7. Wow. You're just. Yes, you see. As the David's toad tries to snap at you. You thrust your sword down, closing his mouth permanently.
Yes. So shall we deconstruct? Talk about what happened?
Yes. So
What went
wow,
wrong?
I would have not, if you, as a betting man, I would have thought you were history.
I'm eating the toad.
Because he does 2 to 8 damage, 2 plus 4.
I'm swallowing the toad
Well,
whole.
the giant toad had a 50% chance of hitting the orc and doing an average of 5 hit points of damage.
Right.
So you would think, oh, yep, a toad versus a single orc. It might take 2 or 3 orcs to take out a toad. So you've got a super orc.
Yeah, you had literally like a 8% chance of surviving that because he went 1 in 8. He had like a 90% chance of hitting you in 3 rounds.
Attacks.
That's right. So very good. So what do we do here? We actually, the reason we did some of this is because we are going to talk about fighters, and this is their bread and butter. Which we're gonna. So orcs, they are ubiquitous. They are the progenitors of half orcs. We've talked about that in the past. David has commented many times. We learned a great word from our patron of this game, Gary Gygax, who said they are very prolific. And we didn't know what he didn't say prolific. What's the word he used, David?
Fecund.
Fecund, yes, fecund. And we like, ooh, that sounds naughty. And then we looked it up and like, oh, okay, that's what it means. Very, they're like Austin Powers. They'll shag anything, baby. So
Well, they will, because I'm glad you brought that up.
Uh-huh.
Because if you look at the bottom, there's an entry for half orcs.
Yes.
And have you noticed that it says here they'll breed with anything, right? There are any number of unsavory mongrels with orcish blood. There's orc goblins, orc hobgoblins, and obviously orc humans. They can't crossbreed with elves. So that's interesting.
And ogres. The Ogrillion is an ogre orc, right? The Ogrillion is an ogre orc, if I remember correctly.
I think with the elves, they've probably gone with the old Tolkien element of where they're natural enemies to each other, and their racial hatred just burns between the orc and the elf.
Yeah.
And so, back in the ancient ages when the orcs were twisted elves and have been corrupted and then gone out of rampaging, I think that's what they've sort of, Gygax and co. have used as the basis for the orc.
Yep.
And that's why you don't have half orc, half elf.
Yeah, very good.
In my mind.
It makes sense. But what's interesting, and I'll just to say, what I think these are some of the things that would be really cool. Put a half goblin, half orc in the game. I've never seen one in a module. I'm surprised someone hasn't put them in there. That would be kind of cool.
And that's exactly, that's what I was going to mention, which is you would have thought that it would have ended up in the Fiend Folio.
Right. Well, the Ogrillion, if I remember correctly, is a half ogre, half orc.
Mm.
I don't know of any other half orcs.
A very short ogre or a very tall orc.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, smaller species of ogre being an orc-ogre crossbreed.
There you go. And they're nasty little buggers.
Yeah, they are.
That's kind of
They're the ones with the 2 attack with the fists,
Yep.
with doing where they
2 to 7.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice because you're always looking for, especially if you've had playing for a while, the traditional kobold, goblin, orc, hobgoblin, just like Caves of Chaos. You end up with ogre, and you go from gnoll. While gnolls are good from a fighting perspective because they're large, they can get beaten up pretty quickly because most people have weapons that they do more damage against large. So they're more like, even though they fight better, they're more like hobgoblins as far as damage because even though they have more hit dice, most parties. So it's nice to have additional mobs that you can throw at people that are not the traditional step from kobold up through ogre. Bugbear, gnoll, hobgoblin, orc, goblin, kobold up through ogre. So it's nice to have additional ones. And the Ogrillion was nice because it has 2 attacks, which makes it a very scary creature.
Savage.
And I noticed that in Holmes, I believe orcs were chaotic evil, which is interesting, right? Because they're lawful evil.
Well, weren't they just chaos? Was it just chaos? Is that the one where they were
Holmes
chaotic?
No, Holmes had, I think it was 5. It was lawful. It had neutral. The only neutral was neutral. But it had lawful evil, chaotic evil, chaotic good.
Yeah, they expanded. You can look it up, but they expanded the because I think in Moldvay they went back to 3 alignments, but it seems like Holmes Basic really was a precursor to AD&D, so they expanded the.
Yeah, it was meant. I mean, it was supposed to be an intro to AD&D, and obviously AD&D was being drafted at the time. And because Holmes is 77, I think. The Monster Manual. The Monster Manual is the first one, right? In 77.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's the reason why I only had one game or one session with the Holmes, is because from that it was like, well, next week we're doing advanced, and it was like, well, okay, because in the back, from memory, it was like in the back of the book it says, oh, don't forget to purchase Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, wow.
You know, like, or something like that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And apparently, and Gygax had, my understanding is Gygax went over the draft. Holmes wrote it, and not surprisingly, Gygax reviewed it, and Gygax was writing AD&D at the time. So I think that's how you got a lot of the elements of AD&D were put in there. But it seems to me it's a bit of a hybrid of OD&D and AD&D. It's kind of in between the two.
I agree with that.
But I think it did. Are you looking for the Holmes edition?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I think it did have the alignment, the multi-alignment approach.
I must have looked it up recently, so let's see. Because, all right, I'll keep going. I'll look up the alignment. You guys keep going. Yeah.
Well, if you look at the monster, you go to Orc, you'll see if it says Chaotic Evil, you'll know then that. Right,
that's the box set. Let's see. Dead air.
Well, I can talk forever. I love the tribes. I always want to make sure they list in the Monster Manual some of the known.
I know that's fantastic. I love putting a little bit of character inside some of these sorts of things. Whenever I ran orcs, I never just kept them as like the dumb barbarian style. I always gave them like a natural cunning, because these guys fight a lot and all the time, and with themselves as well. So they've got a lot of natural fighting ability, which is obviously why they've got to hit class 0 of 19 rather than 20 for first level, like for the one hit dice. But I just think that the orcs can add flavor if, as a DM, you do the clans, and within the Greyhawk setting, like in the Pomage area where they've got all of the major, they talk about which clans live in those zones, and they've got all that laid out there. And I love I love that little bit of just that touch of background, just to sort of, oh wow, so these orcs carry this shield instead of that shield or something. So
and I love in the Best of Dragon, right? Not this one, but I guess maybe
3.
Yeah, whichever one had that talks about the orcs, right? The deeds of the orcs are really interesting too. You get so much background.
It's back there.
Yeah, Roger Moore's articles.
So yeah, orcs are chaotic evil in Holmes edition. They, in large numbers, they have 1 to 6 ogres or 1 to 4 trolls as a percentage, and in full daylight they suffer -1 off their attack dice. So
that's right, I remember that. Yeah.
So that's interesting. Okay, well that's so the giant toad, unfortunately, because he didn't consume the orc, I'm not enjoying it as much. I was really looking forward to describing how your orc was slowly, the enzymes were breaking down the orc's flesh and eating it, but
the orc was just too savage for it. That was what it was.
You got a super orc.
Yeah. All right. And you said I can keep him now as my PC.
Yes. Glade, Pixie, and Braga, whatever you're gonna call him. Yes.
He's like Toad. What did I kill Toad? A Toad killer or something.
That's right.
Like that. I don't know.
Grumlash or
Gorak the Toad Killer.
Gorak. All right, Gorak the Toad Killer.
I'm sure that party's going to be. There's an elf, a half elf, and an orc with a bloodied longsword.
And you know what I'm going to do after this? I'm going to go out and find a nice lady goblin.
And that's right. Have little baby goblin.
Yep.
What's your definition of nice? Is there such a thing as that? Well, you like goblins. You're very.
I like goblins.
I'm surprised you don't have an I love goblins.
I do. I should find one.
You should buy
I looked.
Really?
I couldn't find. Not even on Etsy.
Okay. I'm sure you could get one made.
I like goblins.
It's not really like this took a lot of effort for someone to make this. They basically scrawled chicken scratch.
Wow.
So I like it. It's great. What are you drinking? Chai tea latte again?
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
All
right. So we talked about toads in that.
Very manly.
So now we do random spells, right?
All right. Yes. That was spell selection.
Spell selection. Well, I think our Chamberlain should roll. So we use the scroll selection to figure out our spell. So roll percentages. If you roll above a 70, let us know.
21.
21. We're a magic user. So now roll another percentages to see if it's illusionist or magic user.
56.
80. Okay, so it's a magic user.
56.
56. Yep, magic user, because 90% of all magic user scrolls are magic user as opposed to illusionist. And roll a d10.
9.
9. Ooh,
Whoa.
This is going to be interesting.
Perfect. Okay.
Wow.
This is going to be interesting.
And roll a d12.
So should his magic user with this spell encounter my orc?
Yes, I would like that. What'd you roll for?
So 9.
9 on d12.
A 9. Shape change.
Perhaps that's what it is. The orc, he thinks he killed the toad, but actually it's an 18th level wizard. That's right. Yes. Okay, it's shape change. There you go.
What does that do? I have no knowledge of the spell.
I assume it has something with changing and shaping. That's what.
I mean, yeah, it seems pretty
self-explanatory.
It does, but it's got to be more to it than that, doesn't it?
All right.
Hey, look what's on the picture of shape change.
That's right.
I know.
Now
it's a picture of a frog attacking a whatever
It
that
looks
is.
like a brownie.
This is
So
That's what an 18th level magic user would do.
This is the-
fight a brownie would turn into a giant.
that's right. How about that? Look at that. We did not plan this, folks. This is the power of randomness.
that's the picture of what just happened.
That's right.
The before picture.
Except I don't think this brownie would survive the frog or toad. But okay. So
Duration, 1 turn per level.
now here's the problem with this. The 18th level magic user is not, you would think, super genius, but apparently when you have the choice of being the Sum short of a demigod, greater devil, demon prince, singular dragon, and the greater demon, he picks a frog.
Yes.
He could change himself into a griffin, to an Ifriti, then to a titan. He chooses frog.
No. You're misconstruing the picture.
Oh,
He thought it would be cool to be a brownie.
Oh, you think he's the brownie?
And all of a sudden, this frog comes out, and he's like, "This is a bad idea."
Yeah, this is why 18th.
You know, that could be right.
Right.
That could be very
I
right.
see. He's not the frog.
This
he's
is
the brownie.
a warning.
Right.
Don't.
So you've got to have 3,000,001 experience points and have 18 intelligence.
Right.
Okay.
So to have a 9th level spell,
Okay.
and of the 9th, if you could possibly find a 9th level spell of some description, because it must be pretty hard to find, which one would you pick? Shape change, or would you go prismatic sphere or power word kill?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, this goes, and you know my opinion, but you're the defender. So by the way, for those who don't know, now you have a face to the defender of the defender of pushing and mending. David has rehabilitated both those spells in my book, because they were completely useless until our Chamberlain provided some usefulness. But you don't have to not sell me on shape change. I would never use shape change. I would have, I don't know, power word kill. I would not worry about anything, or wish.
180 turns. 180 turns is that's 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours. Yeah, 18 turns is 3 hours. That's right.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 18 turns is 3 hours.
Yeah.
So for 3 hours, you can keep changing form however you want.
Right.
So you can go as small as a flea to as large as a titan.
Right.
Well, shall we play this out? So he can change. Is he the frog?
Is he the frog?
So
yeah,
he
sure.
okay.
So
I'm a brownie. You guys have decided.
I'm thinking he's the brownie. I'm thinking that the magic user is the brownie.
Okay.
So he's the brownie now, and I'm the giant frog.
Okay, you're the giant
All
frog.
right,
And he's the
fine.
brownie.
I guess that's fair.
Well, I don't know if he has a great 18 intelligence, because part of the spell components is a jade circlet worth no less than 5,000 gold pieces, which will shatter at the expiration of the magic's duration.
Hope you enjoyed being a brownie.
Yeah. In the meantime, it is left in the wake of the shape change, and premature shattering will cause the spell magic to be dispelled. So here's the other problem. If you find a weird creature and you see a jade circlet worth 5,000, no, you don't steal it. You break it so you can get the wizard back into his form. This spell sucks.
Sorry, I just randomly rolled up my hit points as a magic user of 18th level. 30.
30.
Thanks for coming.
30. That's, hey, shoot. Power. That's right.
Okay, so he's a brownie.
And that's assuming, you haven't cast like 12 permanent spells and your
Look.
Constitution's a 6 now.
I've got surprise, clearly, don't I? Do I have surprise?
Yes,
Do we even roll this? I mean, that picture. We're starting at this picture.
Right, we're starting with the picture in the player's handbook.
So
Yes.
I have surprise?
I'll give you surprise.
In what, 4 segments?
Sure.
4? No, you can't do that. I'll swallow them. It'll be over.
Okay.
4.
I'll give you 2 segments.
Wow, this is great. See, if you want 2, ask for 4.
Right, but you do realize that he has Bracer's armor class 0, ring of protection plus 5. So his armor class is -5.
I'm a frog. How do I know that?
You don't know that. I'm just
Okay.
letting you know his
All
armor
right.
class is like -5.
Here we go.
And I reckon I'm more likely to cast magic missile.
Right. Yeah. That's what he's going to pull out his wand of magic missile and just beat you down. But okay.
Wait, am I a frog or a toad?
Well, that is a good question.
What am
So I assume if you what? I'm sorry.
The toads have a very large.
That's a frog.
Yeah, I know. So
this looks like a toad.
Sorry, so I'm a toad.
I would. So David, as the DM, if I was shape changing, as long as I had some audible vocal cords, like a Titan, would you allow me to cast spells still then?
Oh yeah, if you went down to yeah, absolutely. If you were a humanoid, even as a brownie, if you can still cast spells as long as, because you've got all your equipment. It says that you've got all of your equipment's there and everything else. So it all. So I don't see why, especially for a verbal and somatic spell, that would be.
But he's now like a brownie. He's not used to those little hands. So the somatic is going to be, he'd have to relearn. DM.
He'd have to relearn that?
Yeah, right? So that's
why he would just cast Power Word Kill, which is verbal.
Wait. Can I get a chance here? Look, the poisonous toad is indistinguishable from non-poisonous. So we don't know what this is. So the giant toad is common. The poisonous toad is uncommon. Can we look at the percentages and figure that out and give you a percentage chance?
Yeah, roll percentages. Toad? Yeah, roll.
Well, do we need to look what's
No,
common?
I want to roll percent. I'm not going to worry about it unless you roll percentages.
Very good.
I'm not going to figure
it out. You're right. 79.
You're a normal toad.
Okay, that's
See,
fine. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know that.
Oh, he does not know that.
On my attack, I get 2 attacks.
So you get.
I'm just reading this, and the first part of it says that it's in classic D&D style that you can become a creature that you wish. But then in the example down below, it says that you can be a flea, jump onto a horse,
right,
and then you can jump off and become a bush.
A bush.
Right. So yeah.
Which is
a bush.
So in that picture, you could be the grass.
That's right.
That's
you could
right.
be the stone.
That's right. We have no idea. You could be the flea on
or
the
pool
brownie.
of water. Production Goblin Nico says a pool of water you could be.
Just about it.
That's not a creature. Oh, is that a creature?
Yeah.
So
who knows? We are not sure. This is like where's the wizard? Who is the wizard in this picture? We don't know.
So, but is it fair? But he can change at will. So he can change. Like when he gets attacked, he can turn into anything he wants.
Right. He could just. That's right. And if I'm going to say if you miss, basically he turned into whatever he wanted to, and you passed right through him.
But it was 9 segments to cast this thing now.
Yeah, he cast. I thought we cast it already.
Well, yeah, he's a brownie now.
Huh?
He's a brownie now.
Yeah, he's a brownie now.
Yeah, but it lasts for 3 hours.
Yeah. So.
Right.
So,
but I mean, if you wanted to change,
yes,
it would take him 9 segments.
Oh no! It requires each alternate takes one segment.
I keep reading. Oh, after that, it's just one segment. Oh, so once the spell operates, then you can go in and out.
Right.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it just requires 1 segment.
So this would be we would roll initiative, and this is where you'd have to use.
It says change into a griffin, then into an Ifrit, and then to a titan.
So, I like this spell. Why don't you like this spell? Because of the $5,000?
Yeah, 5,000 gold pieces? Are you... That's
at 18th level.
At 18th level?
I was going to say, that's like...
I guess I could use the other spell called Time Stop.
No, wait, I've been using that spell to make money. What was that spell where you just make all the money you want?
Fool's Gold. What was it? Alter Reality?
Yeah, I use Fool's Gold, and I just I just pass it off.
Yeah, well,
to other people.
The point is, hopefully you're doing something better than parlor tricks when you're a grand 18th level wizard. But okay, you're insisting on attacking this 18th level wizard. So
I'm in air.
Right. So
it's too late to stop now.
4. Okay, now you're dead. What do you? Oh yeah.
18.
Okay. 18. Let me see if you actually hit a -5.
So you get the AC of whatever. You get all the attributes of whatever.
Why not?
So he's the AC of a brownie?
I don't think you get the AC of a... Well, yeah, for all intents and purposes, you are a brownie. But if he's what David's saying is you still keep all your equipment.
I understand that. But so you'd start with the base of the brownie, right?
Yes.
Has all the abilities, save those dependent upon intelligence. Okay.
So I'll give you the 18. Let's see what you would hit.
Whatever hit points... The magic user has
you're at the wizard's hit point, so if the magic user has 30 hit points, you've got 30 hit points.
Right. No system shot.
So even though Brownie only has like 4 hit points or something. But...
You would have hit a -2 armor class with that. So I'll say you hit.
You'll say. You don't have discretion on that, do you?
Actually, I have total discretion on that.
Yeah, you're the DM, that's true.
Okay. That's the only thing I have in this game is discretion. I have discretion to do what I want.
3. It's 2d8, right?
Yeah.
3.
4.
4. Okay. This is a prequel to the last episode.
This is a prequel?
Yeah. This means I'm going to win. 4 points.
Well, so he did 4.
So 26 left.
Yeah. So you you can now assume whatever.
So this is when I turn into a red dragon
Right.
and just squash him?
Yes.
Oh.
Would you roll your d20? Here, go ahead. Roll. I think you get multiple attacks. I'm assuming you're not even using any other abilities. So
Yeah.
he changes. Go ahead.
Well, I've got 3 attacks.
You get 3 attacks.
Hang on, if that was his surprise round,
Oh,
right?
That's
wait.
right, that's right,
Oh,
it's
wait.
initiative.
Then that's
That's right.
initiative.
That's right. It's a declare.
So he's going to change to a red dragon and then attack.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're declaring now.
That's
so
right.
I have no idea. I
Yep.
just think this is I just think it's a little brownie.
Right.
So I'm going to attack.
Okay.
All right.
Well, you're a frog.
I know.
I'm not giving you too many options. You don't have that much agency as a frog. You're attacking.
I'm going to parlay.
That's right. 5. What'd you?
I got a 2.
2.
Wow.
Okay, you get one more attack.
So this better be it.
So he is actually transforming on the 5th segment. You're attacking on the 2nd segment. So remember how we went over that back in combat? So okay. So in the 2nd segment, you attack.
17.
Oh wow!
I'll raise this.
Your death is going to be
A shame.
it's going to be dramatic.
2 and a 1.
You've done what, 7 hit points on him
Yeah.
now? That's
Does
a
he
lot.
8 hit points.
8.
And 8 hit points. I've got 22 left.
Ah.
He needs to do a morale check.
No, he's not doing a morale check. He's now you notice he's a large creature. So the frog in whatever
Large
animal what intelligence is he? Semi?
Giant
He's
type?
animal intelligence.
Animal.
Okay. You sense something very big in front of you, and your fear hormones are now
So is it
running
like,
through you.
do I have like a hold of it in my mouth and like it's all of a sudden it's tasting different?
that could be. Well, I know I'm gonna give you a dex check. I don't know what your dex is, but if not, your
but
mouth
wait a
will
second,
explode
'cause
from the change of the dragon.
It could be at this point.
Right, that
Are
would be
we at
bad. That would be bad for you.
Let's say we're at this point.
Yeah, if you're at the where you've had the brownie half in you, and he decides to
Yeah.
become a thing.
I'm eating a brownie.
Okay, you are eating a
I
brownie.
was just eating a brownie.
Yeah, and now the brownie's being so okay.
Okay.
So David has declared his 18th level wizard, who's probably been to every outer plane, is now going to expand into a red dragon.
Okay, so are we declaring? Is that what's
No,
happening?
he-
that was his
No,
turn.
that's my
That's his
turn.
action.
Okay.
So
That's my action.
So
So now I get my
Are you
attack.
claiming that you have started the swallowing process?
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. I mean, it's
Okay.
on the page.
Well, then you need to make a saving throw, because at this point he's exploding in your mouth.
Okay.
And not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
Oh, 18.
Hey, what's your dex? Oh, I'll give you a saving throw.
Oh, yeah, you said saving
I'm
throw.
sorry. Yeah, you may. 18 is good. So
Well,
somehow
I spit
you
around.
recognize
You spat it out.
recognize this is more than you can chew. This
This brownie tastes terrible. Yeah.
This is not the brownies I'm used to. And you spit out. So now David can attack 3 times.
You know,
So I get.
I'm going to assume you
So
are
I have my,
a giant ancient
have my-
red dragon.
see, what I think this shows
Yeah.
is there's a lot of combat in D&D that we're not even aware. It's not all elves versus, you know what I mean? There's stuff
That's right.
happening all the time
It's a circle of
in
life.
the wild. Yeah.
That's right. Where's Steve Irwin when we need him?
Right?
Let me rest in peace. The brownie.
We know where he
That's
is.
right. The
Oh, we
brownie.
should do that picture. Oh, we should have a segment where we do the pictures.
Oh, just do the pictures.
That'd be a
Yeah.
good picture too, with the skeleton coming after the poor
Yeah,
guy.
because why is he not attacking? He has a sword. Wimp. He deserves his death.
Yeah,
Okay.
incomprehensible death should be the
All right,
different
so D8,
pictures
D8,
in the
3 to
book.
30.
Yeah, you're.
So I'm attacking at 11 hit dice.
You need a
or
4.
as myself.
You need no. You're. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
No, I'm attacking as myself. So
Oh, okay.
I'm still attacking as my 8, which probably means that
You need a 7.
I'm about a. Yeah.
You need a 7.
Oh, you attack as your.
Yeah, you're still yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, so you mean he has.
So I rolled a 16 for my first attack, which does D8 damage for the claw for 4 points.
I see. So you use the hit
Second.
dice number of your
Yeah.
character, but he gets the damage and the number of attacks
Right.
of whatever he's shape changed into.
Yeah.
So I rolled an 11. So was that
Yeah.
what was the
Ace, you need
needed?
a 7 as an
Oh, I gotta
18th
do my
level
hit
magic
dice.
user.
My hit dice.
So you just took
Hit
4
points.
damage, another 6.
11.
So okay,
Well,
so
let me
he
hit
has
that.
1 point left. So if
And I'm about to do 3 to 30 damage on him right now.
okay.
No.
This-
Ribbit.
Which might be a bit overkill to a poor frog.
right. So now
So-
now whose mouth is in who?
Yeah, wow.
We saw the
Yes.
you holding the brownie, who then turns into a red dragon, and then now he has you in his mouth,
Yeah.
and he's throwing you around like a rag doll. So
Yeah. I could see dragons eating giant frogs. Or toads.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I don't know about 18th level wizards, so
That would have been awesome if I'd been poisonous now.
So shape change is very powerful. I guess it's good.
Oh, it's over? We're done.
It's over. That part's over. Yeah, the combat's
I've been
over.
eaten.
You've insisted on combat.
So the giant toad lost both encounters.
Right.
Okay.
Not as powerful as we would have thought.
Now.
Fancy that.
Yeah.
No.
Both on the whole spectrum, from an orc, can't beat an orc, can't beat an 18th level wizard. Go figure.
There's a lot of wiggle room in between.
So the problem is, would you cape this spell? I mean, obviously it's a powerful spell, but compared to the other spells in relation to it, am I going to be walking around with shape change? Maybe. To me, Prismatic Sphere would be better because I can defend myself from all you fools.
And realistically, at this level, you've got 9 magic missiles. You've got 18d6 fireballs. You've just got so many. I mean, theoretically, when you get to 18th level,
right?
You're conquering a country.
Yeah.
You're taking over lands.
Yeah. Why are you out
in the marsh?
Why are you out in the marsh?
To throw him for a walk. Shape changing as a brownie. I think I'll shape
as a brownie.
Yeah, I think I'll shape change. What do I feel like doing today? Shape changing into a brownie, going for a walk in a marsh.
The only thing I can think of is that the old Merlin thing where he had a shape change competition.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, is that right? Shape change competition. All right.
Oh
yeah, when he was Merlin, one of the
that's right.
legends of Merlin was the shape change competition.
So there you go.
And he was because in the Arthurian legend, he had the heating of the pants for the Lady of the Lake, the one that gave this Excalibur.
Oh.
And so she complained that he was, I suppose, as a workplace scenario, sexually harassing her by not, because he was always making advances at her. So they put him into a competition to change his shape, and then they ended up locking his shape into a stone form because the time of the spell ran out and he'd changed into something else, and so then he was put aside.
Interesting.
And they just kept him to the side until they needed him.
That's cool. I need to read the Arthurian legends. I wasn't much of a reader growing up, so I haven't done that. Nico, the production goblin, said his opinion. This spell is the only spell that's worse than this is monster summoning. I would agree. It's big. Yeah, I mean, compared to it's just the difference in power level. Just what compared to some of these other spells, which are just over the top.
I'm going to stop time.
Right. I'm going to kill you if you have less than 60 hit points. Or whatever. I can wish. It's just they're so. I mean, they're all powerful, but relative to that. And relative to the game, or I can just go to the astral plane because I don't want to deal with it. So it's okay. I don't, I'm sure as 18th level you would collect it like trading cards. You'd want all the spells, but would I have that? Would I ever use that spell? Meh. It would have to be like David said, a special contest.
Well, this is actually one of the questions once you get to the magic user component, which I suppose has been a handful of weeks. When you're looking at it, you've got the minimum number of spells and the maximum number of spells.
Right.
And so from 18, I mean, for a level 9, you're going to get all of them because you've got a maximum of 18 spells for each level.
Correct.
And it's just one of those things. If you keep that together, depending on how tight you keep these, you've still got the 85% chance of knowing it. Oops, I didn't get to learn it this time. I have to wait until I get to the next level to try again. And every level is 350,000 experience points. And that's why the guy's a brownie, because he's actually got Wish sitting in his book that he's trying to learn how to cast, and he just needs to keep on going because he just hasn't quite got it yet.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at some point, and I don't think we've gotten to that, but your point is, in theory, even at 18th level, he could end up with 9 spells. He'd have if he has an 85% chance, and there's 12 spells for 9th level.
Like
so you're talking probably he's going to end up with 10 because he's going to not make his chance twice, or 1.5 times over 10. So,
but can I ask a question? So when you advance level as a magic user, you automatically get an additional spell.
You have
isn't
the
that way it's
opportunity to
played?
get-
No, you can cast it. You can cast it. You don't get it
So
automatically.
you've got to
You can
find.
cast it. You got to find. You have to find your spells.
Right.
So you may not. Let's say you may only have shape change. Right?
Right.
It's possible that
Yeah.
so it's not like it's not like a cleric. So that may be it,
Because
right?
the whole it's a self-fulfilling, or not self-fulfilling. It's the circle that they go through, where if you sort of think, at 18th level, I don't have to adventure anymore, but I've only got 2 spells. I need to find my other spells because that's what I am. I'm a magic user, so I'm going to go out adventuring and look for spells.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the motivation within the rules to keep you just keeping on moving, and there's a reason why you're keeping on going, because you need to just, you might have it in your book, you failed that 15% chance. Oh no. Then next level you try again, you might fail that 15% chance again, and so you just keep having to progress until you get what you're after.
And what I think is very fortunate is that dungeons are littered with scrolls. That we've talked about this before, that characters have dropped, apparently magic users have dropped scrolls in dungeons and they're waiting to be found.
So I've always played it, well, first of all, I've never had to deal with an 18th level wizard, but I've always played, so there's a couple ways people have done this, because you have that conundrum of, we didn't really care except for first level, and after that we would, when someone got 7th level, I think we used to forget rolling percentages. But the two options are, and we're not talking about, by the way, we're talking about fighters today here at GROGTALK.
Yeah, so we're happy to sort of like
yeah, but I think that's something we need to talk. I will say two real quick points. One, I've always played it that if you roll for your chance and you don't get it, unless your intelligence changes, you can't learn it again. There's no, because it says, the way I've always read it is, each spell may only be checked once, not per level, and that only if your intelligence changes. The second thing is, when you're 18th level, the idea is you're going to have a library, you're going to have research, and you're going to follow what's in the DMG for spell research. You're either going to create a new spell, or you're going to say, gee, I've heard about this thing where I can shape change, and they're going to do it that way. Now, you still may not figure it out because your library may not sufficient. It may take you 6 months to do it. But we can talk more about that on the magic user side. So because
it's actually in the DM's guide where it says that next level they can try again. They didn't put it in the player's handbook. In the player's handbook, like I was told you ages ago, I think the player's handbook is almost like a glossy brochure.
Right.
Oh, don't do this, it's not going to happen. And then in the DM's guide, it's like, no, this is how it works. Just don't tell them. So then that way they get surprised.
Yeah, that does. And that's always the thing. You have to kind of cross check that, and that would be, that would certainly make things a lot more fair for the magic user, because again, it kind of sucks if you blow your sleep chance and you never get sleep, because if you don't, then wow, that really
you miss a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you really, you need to. There are certain spells you just need to have. You need to have certain spells.
Yeah, you become wounded by that. But we'll talk more about that on the magic user thing. So I think we're ready to segue. We've burned through our spell selection, so we're going to talk about fighters on our word of recall segment. And so this is why David, our Chamberlain from Australia, eagerly said, "Hey, do you mind coming on?" I'm like, "Of course." So it's interesting. They have literally the shortest entry in the player's handbook when it comes to classes.
Less than 30 lines. Yeah. Less than 30 lines.
Yeah. So, and you could argue that's because people know what a fighter does. They fight. They're fighting men, if you go back to the old school way. And there's plenty of archetypes, and they've made it as generic as possible. And in some ways, we've talked to David previous, and I almost feel like they shouldn't have made any subclasses. They should have had fighter, and then people could play it the way they wanted to play it. So what's your impression of fighters? What have you used them in your campaign in the past, David?
Well, fighters, obviously the meat and bone of a party. And the way that I've always tried to encourage my players to use the class is to really get into they don't have to actually, a lot of people are obviously, they're not the Matt Mercer level of role playing, but try to encourage that, well, what type of fighter, what sort of background, whereabouts you're from, and try and pick certain things from around there. So if you're going to be a pirate, or if you're going to be coastal, or if you're going to be desert dwelling, and just try and then have weapons and armor that suit. People get hung up with the fighter in terms of, well, they've got D10 hit points and they've got exceptional strength, but so does the ranger and so does the paladin. And when you've got your mixed bag of stats in front of you, and you're looking at it and you're going, well, am I just going to choose a fighter? And it's a big question for players to ask themselves in terms of, well, how am I going to play that? Because if you wanted to play it as generic as you could, you'd end up doing a Boromir, which is just like the guy in armor and a shield and a sword that has the horn and is at the front of the party and fights and so on. And that's obviously one of the archetypes for the class, because there's various there's so much to work with in terms of fighter. Whether you go from medieval Europe, whether you pick something that's from a different culture, and this is even before we do something like opening up the fantasy realm of Greyhawk, and you're looking across and you've got tiger nomads, and you've got all the different more traditional Knight of the Watch type armor and everything else. Right. And I think that it's the key for the DM and with the players with the fighter is really working out, okay, if they roll a low hit points,
right,
that's really it. The low hit points or the low money. If your fighter is poor, then you're going to end up with a staff, a club, and maybe some leather and bits of something else until you can beat the crap out of somebody and get better armor and weapons. And if you've got low hit points, you're hoping to have some money, so that way you can just load up. And that's probably the trick for the DM more than anything, because the fighter does need to have that, if not front roll, it needs to be within that first line. So maybe it doesn't have to be if you've got a 4 hit point fighter, you could be second rank as long as you've got missile weapons. Not so much you have to be, but that would be your position because you get experience for fighting. That's your thing. And you get better at it. You don't need to have exceptional strength. I think constitution is more important for the fighter. But anyway, and so that would be my shtick as the DM, is if the person rolls a 1 for the hit points, look, all right, go to 3 or 4, go to 4 hit points, because you need some. And I think there's a certain amount.
Did you hear that? You can give them more hit points. You don't have to just say 1 hit point.
Because look, if you rolled a 1 and you're a magic user, everyone expects that. No one expects a magic user to have more than 4 hit points max. They're not going to put the 16 in con. They're going to put the 16 in dexterity. Right. And if you're a fighter, and this is where the cool stuff of obviously the non-humans, the dwarf and the half-orc with 19 con, because they roll a minimum of 7 hit points every level. So with 19 constitution, you don't have to do anything. You roll a 1, well, you got 7. That's it. For the normal, if you're a regular human fighter and you're rolling and you've only got a 14 constitution, and you roll that 1, you go, I'm doing you a solid, you do me a solid. You don't just, you take your character into consideration, and I'll give you 4 hit points. And I suppose that's what you need to look at most in terms of as a DM. And that's really the main thing, because the fighters need that. The fighters need to be able to feel that they're useful in a party, because a cleric can do what they do at first level almost as well. Then you've got folks who are rangers who get all of their special bonuses. Paladins get their special bonuses. Even monks, they're all reasonably buff to a point, especially at first level. Once you get second or third level, the fighter's just steps ahead. That's different, but you've got to survive to get to that point. Right. And it's really all about the survival of the character. But that's me. I'm happy to sort of help the player, just help the players along and keep it an even sort of a keel in terms of allowing them some room to move with something like a fighter. Well, as you say, there's 30 lines of text.
Yeah, well, there's and you bring up a couple of interesting points, and one I haven't really thought of, but we're really metagaming when we say, oh, you have 1 hit point, you shouldn't attack that much. Does the character actually know they have 1 hit point, or are they just really frail? Do you play that as part of your guy? Because we don't have a big number over us of how much, if someone punches me in the face, that I know how many punches I can take, unless you're you could argue, well, they're fighters, and through fighter training, he just seemed to go down a lot faster than every other fighter that he went through. But, we don't really, they don't have a number on their head. And I think that would be kind of interesting. The fighter, the character who plays, I got 1 hit point, and he's constantly charging. He's like, because he always gets knocked out, and he wakes up and like, hey, we won. I don't know.
Yeah, because do you know you have a glass jaw?
Right.
I mean, at some point maybe you start to.
Yeah.
But you'd have to.
And Gygax would say that, and in his text somewhere, he would say that the fighter would be misstepping at first and second level. He would be zigging instead of zagging. The gods are like, oh, man, who is this Joker? Yeah. Like the Gygax's explanation on hit points is so otherworldly.
Right.
It's more than just how much punishment you can take. I mean, we know that in a minute's worth of combat, it's not so much one strike.
Right.
It's one opportunity to strike. And so in that combat round, it's stress, it's movement, it's fatigue. Hit point damage isn't just an actual knife to the throat or a stabby stab. It's a number of other factors. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Ivanhoe.
I believe so.
1952 Ivanhoe.
Oh yeah.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. There's this great scene in there where they've got a tournament between 2 knights, and one knight just drops his shield and just comes in and is just going smack, 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 and the other one's just really no actual blow is connecting, but it drives him down and just knocks him down and is just like on top of him, and and you can just see that's pure D&D fodder in terms of. You've been hit, you go down, you've been hit again. You're not actually taking any damage, but you've got all of that fatigue, you've got no luck, you've got a slippery step, you've got, like all sorts of things that are just playing against you in that moment. And that's what it comes down to. And I think that as a DM, we sort of, we try and make the game as entertaining and as exciting, but we all sometimes forget, I think, and I know, and I've been guilty of this a lot, where you just immediately assume one dice roll is one attack, and that's pretty much it. And it's not really,
right.
It's supposed to be that attack routine. And I think that with a fighter, you've got to allow the fighter to be a fighter just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's their job.
Well, and that leads to the second point of, because there's limited text, they're an open palette, but they are. For the other challenges, in my opinion, it's like the amount of experience points they need to go up in levels. If they, if I think they need too many experience points to go up levels based on the powers that they have. If commensurate it to a ranger or a paladin, there's only a 10%. I think rangers need like 2250, paladins need 2500 versus 2000. So the amount of skills that they have compared to the experience points that you need doesn't seem appropriate. And so that almost leads to, you want to fight. I almost will, and this is why I do allow usually some kind of point buying or skewing to allow the fighter. It really comes down to the advantage they have that no other class has except for their subclass is the exceptional strength. And even though you can play, it's just like having a fighter with 1 hit point. If they don't have exceptional strength, it really feels like they're not moving forward as well.
See, I'm almost on the opposite, not so much the opposite. Whereas I think that where they had an opportunity to say, right, the XP bottle should, like in most cases, the XP bottle is like that for most of the classes, whereas the fighter is very even in the middle. They've only got 9 hit dice for rolling D10. Right. And it's only between levels 4 and 6 where that XP bottle sort of narrows, and then it becomes even again. So it goes up evenly, out a little bit, in, and so on. And I think that that's probably the area that fighters really need need more help on, because an exceptional strength, by the time you're second level, you've got to hit armor class 0 of 19. At third level, it's 18. By fifth level, it's 16. Suddenly, that's the same as a 13th level fight, 13th level thief or something like that, or 12th level thief. So
well, that's assuming
that they're
you're
actually
right.
to hit.
Yeah.
And that's why the XP side of it is probably more the actual area that needed to be massaged a bit better, I think.
Sure.
Than,
right.
Because the thief's 1250, the priest or the cleric is 1500,
right.
druid's 2000, and the fighter is also 2000,
right.
which is sort of, a little bit odd. You would have thought it would have been somewhere between, either 1250 and 15,
right.
or even between 15 and 12 and 2.
I would argue to even be less, because of all the skills, in the context of being a priest, where you have to fight, where they currently fight first level as well as a fighter, and they have all their priestly duties, which, again, as you mentioned accurately, Gygax talks about what experience is, and this is a game, and instead of figuring out how much prayer you do, which would be more applicable to a cleric than actual fighting, they're fighting. They're literally, this is what they should be good at, and if they survive fighting, they should get better at it. I would argue they should be one of the easiest to get through, because thieving, you're doing thieves skills, you have a lot of other skills besides fighting. So I would almost half their thing, or get it more in line, to your point, of a thief or a cleric, so that they could progress faster. It's just the way they're set up. If you really look at all of them, it's hard unless you have something in your mind that I want to be a pirate. Rangers are not pirates. Paladins are not pirates. I got to be a fighter. And the reason I keep mentioning that is because I have the cover of A3 here, where we have one of the slave lords, which looks like a pirate. So it's kind of a disadvantage. But again, if you're looking for party balance and all the characters being similar progression, go play another edition. This is kind of what you get with first edition. And I think that segues into the book that shall not be named, why that specialization, a lot of the players wanted that, because if they didn't have exceptional strength, if you got multiple attacks with and you were good at it, that kind of was they went from being necessary to being something that you wanted to play. So Dan, what's your thoughts on fighter?
Well, I was going to ask David, if would you ever play a fighter if you made the rolls to be a paladin or a ranger? Because and you brought this up, that why would you want to be a fighter if you could be? But so I wanted to ask you that.
Me personally, yes, I would, because I would have in my head the type of fighter that I would want to fight. If I had in my head, right, I want to be the guy that does this, then I would have in my head, okay, I want him to be almost a paladin, not quite a paladin, not have all the religious duties of being a paladin, but maybe still be lawful neutral, lawful good, or something along those lines. You could be a little bit more. The lawful good fighter is not the same as the lawful good paladin, so you've got a lot more wiggle room for how your alignment works if you're a lawful good, because all you have to do is just have your own set of code of laws, and that you believe that you're fighting for the good of mankind, the good of people. So you could have the law of Bushido, you could have a code of arms that comes from somewhere else, or the history of the group that you've grown up with, or the Templars, or whatever.
Right.
You can create your own background and structure. And I would so celebrate a character that did that. I mean, you roll up the stats for a paladin and you're thinking, I'm going to be a fighter. Odds are, if you're able to, do the normal 4d6 and discard the lowest and arrange it however you want, it's going to be a non-human half-elf. It's going to be like a half-elven cleric ranger or something like that. I mean, there are only a couple of classes where you would say, I'm going to be a fighter. And that would be the dwarven fighter, a half-elf fighter, and a human fighter. Everyone else is going to be a multi-class fighter, because elves only go up to like level 6 normally, maximum of 8 or something. And halflings are only going to be 4 or 5. Gnomes are going to be 5 or something. You've got all those where they're limited to that. And there's a reason why they're limited, which is fine. But it's the other class that's going to be the primary thing. All the fighter does is bring armor and weapons into your closet. And that's pretty much what they do. Yeah. And I don't have a problem with that. But as a straight fighter, you're going to be, if you say, I'm going to be straight fighter, you are going to be dwarven, and only if you've got an 18, and you're probably still going to be a fighter thief anyway, even as a dwarf. But you'd be straight up half orc because any strength level you're 10. Level 10 is your maximum. And that puts you in the same category as a human in terms of you're going to be building a castle, because no one else is going to be building a castle. Only human fighters, half orc fighters, and dwarves of 18 strength. They're the only rough fighters, player characters, that will be building a domain and castle.
Yeah, so what David's talking about is, of the 30 lines of text that is on there, it talks about once you achieve a certain level, ninth level, you become a lord. You have the opportunity to build a stronghold and attract followers. And David's point is, the only races that can get to ninth level are fighter, half orc, dwarf, and human. So the other ones will never get to that level even without some extraordinary magical means. Their strength, and even then, it's extremely unlikely, assuming you don't use the book that shall not be named. Hey, Nico, is anything on the chat that's people talking about?
No.
Okay.
So I can be a half orc lord with a castle.
Potentially. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
With 12 charisma, and with you and your 5 best non-half orc mates.
Right. So it'd be very roomy.
Yeah.
I'll have a lot of space.
Well,
It would be a very interesting trade negotiation between you and the local lord to say, could I have this patch of land over here?
Yes.
Because as a half orc fighter, you are going to put that 18 into Constitution, so that way you have 9d10 plus 5 every level, and with every one being rolled as a 2. So, like I said, a minimum of 7 to 15 hit points every single level. So by the time you're a 9th level orc fighter with 19 con, you are just going to be this. Like, magic users don't scare you in any way, shape, or form.
No.
You get 45 bonus hit points just from Constitution.
So that brings up an interesting thing, because one of the things that fighters more than anyone, if you have a DM that's really going to build a campaign, and you get to that level, you then can use the items in the DMG from page 105 on, which talks about building your stronghold, and in particular use of non-human troops. So you could, as a half orc, you could recruit bugbears or gnolls or goblins or hobgoblins. You could really lean into that. You have a bunch of brigands or pirates, and you have you could have sea hobgoblins. What are those? Sea hobgoblins with pirates. That would be amazing. Yeah. Hey, you're actually selling me on fighter now, as opposed to them being underpowered, sucky.
Well, and a half orc fighter.
Yeah, half orc one. Half orc, half kobold or something. That'd be amazing.
And in those 30 lines of text, and again, if you're going to be a human fighter, if you want to have 2 attacks every round, if you want to have that attack routine of 2 per round, because at 13th level.
Yep.
Oh wait, hang on. Who can be 13th level? Only humans can be 13th level, because between 7 and 13 or 7 and 12, you've got only elves of high strength, dwarves, half orcs. They're going to get 3 attacks every 2 rounds.
Yeah.
That split level. Yeah. But humans, when they get to 13, get 2 attacks every round against most creatures. So you're looking at the benefit of being a human is if you want to have those multiple attacks.
Is there ever a benefit to being a half orc? I mean, you get nothing. Like the dwarves, every other race gets all these special things, right? The dwarves are...
You get 19 con.
You
get 19 con.
You get infravision.
And you get 10th level of being a fighter without any requirement of your strength. You could have 9 strength and be 10th level.
But if you didn't get the 19 con, so if you roll before you choose, and you don't get rolling 18, is there really any, unless you want to be what is cleric assassin? Is that the only half orcs? Yeah, I know, for cleric.
It's amazing.
But I was wondering are there any multi-class that only a half orc can be? So is cleric assassin?
Yeah, cleric assassin.
So other than if you want to be a cleric assassin, which is
and fighter assassin.
Okay, so unless you want to be a multi-class assassin,
which is amazing.
Which is pretty awesome.
Right.
But if you don't want to
if you only want to be a Superman assassin, if you don't want to be that, why would you be that?
I know, but you're evil.
And so which actually means that every time when you meet a half orc as an NPC, there's about a 90% chance that they're a fighter assassin.
Right. They're some kind of assassin.
Don't kill me.
Which means you should kill them instantly.
What?
Yeah, but
there's a good chance your DM is not going to permit you to be an assassin, because that's an evil. I mean, that's a game changer.
Yes.
That's literally a game changer.
And I think this is one of those other things where
He's heard
I've
us.
heard a number of podcasts where they say, oh well, like paladins and assassins can't mix. It's like, well, I personally don't see why a paladin and assassin can't mix.
Well, besides it says it in the rules they can't mix, but I get
more
your
than
point.
one adventure.
Oh,
one
no,
adventure. We get one adventure.
They dislike the idea of mixing.
Yeah.
But realistically, an assassin is only evil if at them, they're only considered evil because they take money to kill people.
Yeah.
That's their shtick.
What are you?
No,
you guys on the same thing?
have
Only for that one problem that they have. That's right.
Yeah, but so it's like okay, but if they're lawful, but most assassins will be lawful evil,
right?
Because of that, I hold to my contract. My contract is to do this, so therefore I belong to a contract, and so you're only going to do that if you're lawful evil. If you're a neutral evil or a chaotic evil assassin, then I reckon they're in the minority, and they would be the bad guy that your clan is trying to kill, or that your assassin's group is trying to kill. I think the lawful evil assassin would fit in quite nicely with the party, because you're looking at, they're just spies, or
right.
James Bond's an assassin, guaranteed. He's an assassin character,
right.
and he'll be lawful evil because he only kills evil people. He only kills people who are bad, according to James Bond.
And that's one of the arguments that. The problem is money. Now, of course, you could argue James Bond gets paid for what he does, and he's killing people who are evil. I think any of it goes back to, these are the rules as written, and you can manipulate them if you have the people in your group that you've played with. You couldn't do that on a one-shot because someone's going to be the jerk and stab everyone in the back. But if you had the right players, to your point, who's going to play the character either has if they announce the secret, then it's a little bit challenging. But they could play like you said, a cleric assassin or a fighter assassin, or just an assassin who's high enough level and they pawn themselves off as fighters. And then why is this assassin who gets paid for money being in this party of adventurers who are trying to do good? That's back to your thing of building a backstory. That's why it's so important. Now, if they come up with a backstory just so that they can screw with the rest of the players, then I'm not going to allow that. But if it's part of your campaign where, and they're also going to have to be comfortable with the fact of when this gets revealed, or if assuming it's one of those scenarios, and that's the big drama that they could be killed and they're okay with it, well then that's cool because that could be a fun, dramatic story. But I'm not going to have someone in there who is just going to be a troll job, who's going to, they're all sleeping, I'm going to slit all their throats.
Yeah, well, that's the same with the thief.
Right.
I don't go with the thieves that say, right, I'm going to steal all my party's stuff. Right. And it's like, well, no, you don't do that. No. There's a certain thing. I mean, if you're a chaotic evil, I would ask players to avoid certain alignments as much as possible, which I know is hard to do because you want to try and not curtail their, imagination and everything else that they do. Yeah. But you want to sort of try and say, right, I want you to try and be a little bit more party friendly, and I also go with the, I say that alignment, there's lots of discussions about alignment and about where alignment sits and which lawful is that and which good is that and so on. And alignment is in the eye of the DM.
Right.
And Gygax says, you keep a chart. So it's all down to what the DM thinks. You're a lawful good guy and you go out and you kill a whole bunch of kobold children. He's going to move that point from there over to there, and that's what is going to happen.
Well,
I just think,
and we talk about that. After every session, Dan pulls out his chart and his performance review, right. And you give us a 1.37, and you move the chart over.
Right.
I mean, I get your point.
You've been shifting toward neutral evil.
Yeah. Are you
from your lawful evil?
Like a hurricane tracker, right? You've given the 11 o'clock update on that. I know we should do that, but then again, it goes back to, I'm a fan of. Alignment is not something that prevents you. How you play equals your alignment. It shouldn't be, I'm chaotic evil. That's why I'm going to do this. No, play your character, and then I'll tell you how. And for me, that's why it always has to be related to some kind of deity, because the deities kind of define the alignment as they pertain it. And one thing that when I was young, we didn't do is really follow Gygax's thing of. Every player should have a patron deity, regardless of whether they were a cleric or something. They needed to have some guidance. This world has deities who are active in the multiverse, and you couldn't just say, well, I guess you could say I'm an atheist. I don't believe in these deities, even though they've manifested themselves. I'm not going to follow any.
They didn't, but atheists didn't really exist in that form
Right,
back
that's
in.
what I'm
I mean,
saying.
if you look at every medieval culture, and not just in terms of European or Asian or African, but if you look across the world, that medieval culture, everyone
they
has
had some
a pantheon of gods.
Exactly. Unless you're going to be almost like Paradise Lost Milton. You're not atheist. I don't believe. I just refuse to be part of the system. I'm going to go on my own. But the point of all that is, that's what solves some of this. Not solves. At least it provides a framework, because it's hard. My lawful good is different than your lawful good. It's only that the deities provide it, and then that's hopefully the hand that you can use as the DM to kind of move people back to it. And part of the thing I like to do, and I appreciate what you're saying about the backstory, is okay, here's the pantheon. Let's create the pantheon for our campaign. I may come up with the general themes, but if you're a pirate, and let's say you have the god of the sea, you'd write up what the god of the sea is and tell me what it is. And so then let's say he's chaotic neutral or lawful neutral. How does that manifest itself in your player so that you get the situation like Conan with Crom? They're interchangeable if it's done right, and this way you can get the player invested, as opposed to the DM, who has yet another thing they have to do, which is write the pantheon, figure out how it applies to the player, and then enforce the rules. If you know how the deity is, and then you start violating it, well, it should be self-explanatory if you're trying to play the game. I think the other part is, we have some players who are very invested in the game, and then we have some players who just want to show up and roll dice, and they're both fine. And you're serving different needs. So let's talk about some of the advantages. There is one advantage that's not listed in the 30 things of text, which is, you did mention it for fighter level. So when you DM and you have fighters and they're second level, you give them the 5% plus to hit, because the normal chart goes from 1 to 2, 3 to 4, but it says, hey, if you want, you're a fighter, you get that plus.
You can change it to up increments of 5%.
And I agree with that, because that gives them a bonus that they should have.
And that gives them an edge. That's the edge that they need. And that's the bit that actually says, okay, if my player doesn't roll 1800 strength, but they've got 8 hit points. They've got a good solid hit points, right, but they've got 14 strength. By third level, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter if they don't have that, because they're going to have a +2 magical sword or a +1 magical sword, or you already know what is in the campaign and what's coming up in terms of what they're going to get as equipment. So you already know that, okay, most of the monsters that you're facing are going to be armor class between 4 and 7. So once the fighter, that toad encounter we had being the exception, once you get to a certain level where the fighter has 55% chance of hitting and doing damage, then they're looking at weapon selection. And I think this is where the fighter is the best class, because it starts with 4 weapon proficiencies. Yep. You're looking at versatility of weapon. I'm going to have a bow. I'm going to have a long sword or a broadsword for short things. I'm going to have a long sword for damagey things. I'm going to have a spear to stop charging things. So, and if you're a ranger, that's all the weapons you get. You only get 4 weapons. Like from a ranger and a paladin, you're limited in terms of what you're going to keep in the closet. But the fighter can rock up to battle with a cartload of weapons and just have this is my bowling ball of death, and just throw it and whatever they want to do.
Bowling ball of death.
And this is where the fighter really sings, because okay, we're up against a bunch of trolls, right? That's it. Boom, let's get this happening. Oh, we're up against a bunch of this, right? Then boom, let me dish out the Whereas the paladin, he's got or she's got 4 weapons. He's got 1 suit of armor. The fighter will have a suit of armor for dress day, for field day, a suit of armor for dungeon crawling, a suit of armor for stealthily creeping through the streets. He'll have a suit of armor for show.
So and I think that's a great point. If the campaign follows the rules of that, meaning your DM is giving out lots of magic items like the modules do, where there's a lot of magic items relative to the players, and then the DM is also holding the other characters' restrictions. So David's talking about that paladins can only have a handful of magic items. They have the same weapon proficiencies, but they can only they can only have one suit of armor. I don't know what the list is.
They only get three. They only get three weapon proficiencies at first level.
At first level, and Ranger.
A Ranger and Paladin.
And Ranger can only, their items have to be what they can only carry whatever they can put on their horse. They can't until they become a Ranger Lord. They can't be carrying casts of thousands and paladins.
They have the same restriction as a paladin.
But as far as magic items, in other words, they're not, to your point, like your traditional knight who has almost a squire with all their gear behind them that they could have whatever they want if you want to play it that way. Dan, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I was wondering, David, if you used the adjustments for it to hit armor class types.
The weapon,
because I would think it just made me think of that if a fighter has a lot of weapon proficiencies, I could see the fighter saying, "Oh, I'm going to use this weapon because I know it's going to get a lot of adjustments."
Yeah, I did, which put a lot more work on me as a DM. Because obviously in the player's handbook, in the monster manual, they don't have any natural armor class of anything. So an orc has an armor class of 6. It's like, what armor is that? So I just sort of run with their armor class is going to always be 6. And I was like, okay, so if they have an armor class of 6, I might say they've got studded leather armor, and then that +1 is just their natural toughness for fighting, And so I'll just use the studded leather, or I'll use chainmail if I want to give it a little bit, but it's like a badder quality, worse quality.
I think ringmail 6? Is ringmail?
I think so. I think off the top of my head, it's ringmail might be 6.
Yeah, so you could either do ringmail or badly damaged chainmail. We've done that before.
Yeah, that's right. And I just think that also adds to the description and also adds to mixing it up a little bit. We were talking about before how you want to make them a little bit more, different, so that they're not always the same, and everyone knows it all. Armor class 6, it's lawful evil. They've got 1 hit dice. They hit on a 19. Everyone knows all. So you want to give them just that little bit of extra spice sometimes.
Scale mail is 6. And so, ring and studded are the same. So
this is us. This is everybody rushing for their books right now, just to make sure.
Ring mail and studded are the same, at least in the player's handbook. Scale mail is 6. So
ring mail and shield is and scale mail.
But your point is so this way, for particularly, that's a very to Dan's point, that's a big advantage for fighters because they have more weapons, so they can metagame and say, oh, I know that my 2-handed sword is really good against these guys. But that only takes advantage.
Well, you're only going to get, but you've also got knowing that I'm going to be coming in and using weapon adjustments. Then I'm also going to be using speed factor. I'm also going to be using weapon length. So you know that on that 1 in 6 chance that we're an equal number of for a tie, that 2-handed sword isn't the best. And you're looking at a 6-foot swing. So you're only going to have 1, maybe 2 guys in the front row. You've got that sort of stuff that has to be in play. And I think that the fighter can really be brought to its front as long as you do use these rules, because it forces the fighter to say, right, this is how we're going to have to tackle this thing, and that's what the fighter does. The fighter isn't just meant to be we love it to be the muscle and bone. And what's the World of Warcraft thing where they call it the brick?
The tank.
They've got all those. The tank, yes, the tank. Whatever. Yeah, they've got all of those names.
Right, Nico?
You have to have one.
Yeah. So my son is just playing World of Warcraft Classic, and he's playing the tank at this point.
Yeah, the warrior. Where everyone's got that, then they've got their buff, and they've got to have. You have to have the X to make it work. And I think that in first edition AD&D, the fighter is that spot where it can be whatever you want it to be. And I think as long as you give the players a little bit of an edge, just that spark to say, well, what are you going to do with your fighter? Watch a few movies and so on. And I think that there's a couple of other things where the fighter really shines. I mean, not just the fighter, Ranger, Paladin, but obviously we're talking fighter, but a lot of the rules move across with the Ranger and the Paladin as well. Like the multiple attacks, and you have to really know how multiple attacks work as a DM. If you're going to say, right, I want these people in my game, which everybody wants fighters, Rangers, and Paladin, you need to know how multiple attacks work, because it's not very. This is where. And I've written it down where it says, well, this is the reason that you have halfling fighter thieves. You asked the question, I think last week or maybe the week before, where James, where he said, would you even be a fighter thief if you're a halfling? I think you asked that question.
Probably.
And you do it because at 5th level, it means against kobolds and goblins, you get 5 attacks around.
You know, you just, boy,
you're about to bring that up.
You're segueing into our next point, which is that's another advantage that, and something as a DM, I think we should take more advantage of, which is, you know, if you've got players and if you're not running pre-gen modules, you should give them a chance to shine. And this is where fighter. So for those who are not alluding to it, where is that? And can you
I think it's page 25. The note at the bottom.
It's after the ranger. It's after the ranger section.
Yep. Yeah, right. and the players. Yeah, which is why I think many of us. I certainly back in the day. I don't remember knowing about this at all. It says. So note: this excludes melee combat with monsters of less than 1 hit die and non-exceptional humans and semi-humans, i.e., all creatures with less than 1 8-sided hit die. All of these creatures entitle a fighter to attack once for each of his or her experience levels. Yep. So that would be including the paladin, because it's after the ranger section, right? And the paladin. That's so it's at the very end. So it'd be all fighters and stuff, right? So yeah, so kobolds. So what are some classic less than 1 hit
goblins?
Goblins, kobolds,
kobolds,
men at arms,
men at arms. Yeah,
men at arms. Yeah. A lot of the 0 level, and this is why I call it the attack as many times per level rule. You know, and I try and refer to it as much as I can in everything that I write and everything I put together, because it's one, as you exactly said, it's one of those rules where people go, man, I've never seen that before, or I don't see that, I forget about that. But if you're a gnome or a halfling fighter, you're going to be a fighter thief because it adds additional weapons to your thief ability. Plus, for the first 4 or 5 levels, you get half D10 as a buff. But that 5 attacks every round against your racial hatred, against the thing that you hate the most, which are goblins and kobolds, you get 5 attacks every round.
Well, the only thing you got wrong.
Why wouldn't you pick that?
Right. The only thing you got wrong there was I'm not a fighter. I'm a fighter illusionist. No.
Yes.
I'm not a fighter thief. Fighter illusionist.
Right. Yeah, fighter illusionist.
What's your gnome? Louie? What's his name?
Winkley Pew.
Winkley Pew. What's Winkley Pew? Is he a fighter illusionist?
He's a fighter illusionist. Okay. And captain of the Sea Ghost, excuse me. Captain of the Sea
Ghost.
A seafaring gnome.
That's right. I have a sea.
Oh, that's right. The Sea Ghost. That's the boat from Saltmarsh.
That's the boat, yes.
You've got the boat.
Well, so you raided the Saltmarsh.
Yes, we've raided Saltmarsh, and the rest of the party.
I love that series. That's my favorite. The U1 to 3. Yeah. Is it U1 to 3 you're doing, or are you doing the 5th ed version?
We're doing U1. We're doing
I think
John, DM John.
You're on U2 now, aren't you?
I believe so. I wasn't there the last session.
Danger at Dunwater.
I wasn't there, and apparently we shortcutted something. I'm not quite sure exactly what happened because I wasn't available. I had that's when my sons were from. Came up by, but all the rest of the party wanted the magic items they found. I'm like, I don't want any magic items. I'll just take the boat.
How do you know how to? You're not a seafaring gnome.
So I went. What did I do? I went to Saltmarsh and I recruited a crew.
Oh, I see. So you're sitting back.
I subcontracted.
Yeah, you did the AD&D thing. You did the AD&D thing. That's where
right.
You said, I'll pay for hirelings.
That's right. I subcontracted.
Who wants to be a sailor?
That's right. I subcontracted out.
Oh, I see a mutiny coming.
Well, I see a color spray coming then. So that's fine. They've seen me killed before. It's but yes, I'm Captain Winkley.
Are you retired? Are you just like sailing?
No, well, no. I go on adventures. And of course I charge them rent. I charge the party passage to use the boat. You know, this ship ain't cheap.
It's like your own castle.
One of my parties that did that adventure, they did the same. They took the Sea Ghost, and they ended up going raiding up and down,
exactly,
almost being buccaneers, privateers across the sort of the princes. Let's see, the princes. They were the villains that they were actually trying to be hired to stop.
They just actually took over for them.
Who's the real enemy? I've always said the party is the real evil in anything. Well, I don't know. With Nico's schedule in mind, part of the reason I joined John's game was to get it going. So I'm going to continue to play, but if he keeps getting more and more players, which he has been, then I can make my guy an NPC and
he can sail off.
That's right. Well, I could be the captain of the Sea Ghost.
Right.
And then he could introduce me when I need to, because at some point he becomes 5th level fighter illusionist, and that's pretty much he's pretty tapped out. at
No,
that
what would
point.
be
It was like fifth and
Yeah,
seventh.
something like that. It's not,
No.
I don't have much to go.
it'd be better if you're an evil cleric and you man it with like skeletons and all that, don't you think? You know, like the.
I guess you need to run that in your basic game. That would be perfect. That would be good. So that is one of the advantages I think DMs really should play into that, because there is something heroic about, you know, as we did with the combat here, it can be very the rules are set up to miss and not hit, whereas later editions, they made, to your point, to David's point, they made it a lot easier, that basically you have a lot more hit points and it's easier to hit. So you get a lot more fighting and hitting, and here it's
the representation of attacks in the later versions, even from second edition, you are one attack, one dice roll.
right.
You know, I mean, like they really went away from Gygax's theory of 1 minute of this phantom combat,
Right.
which has swirling melee.
Right,
you know, he refers to the swirling melee.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, and you've got when you've got your broadsword, you've got 4 feet radius, so you're actually dancing within 4 feet around your little spot where you're engaging with your opponent who has a 3 foot radius, and you're sort of moving around. And that's another sort of one of those sorts of things where whatever you bring to the table as a DM, that's what everyone's going to play. And so sometimes you just forget, I forgot about that.
That's a great point.
But the moment that the players realize that, you know, this weapon gets them a +1 to hit an orc, they're not going to forget that.
Yeah.
They're not going to forget that they get +1.
And there's something really cool when you if you put it in the game where you got your fighters, they're 3rd level or something, and they get they see 15 kobolds, which before 1st level party, 15 kobolds could be the end of them. And they get this chance to kind of, wade through them and cut them down in big. I remember, a lot of my game playing is really influenced by the gold box games of the SSI games that came out later. And it was just, we would fight kobolds, my computer character, and they would do this, basically they call it almost like I think they call it a swing move, where literally you just kind of swung around and you decapitated a bunch of, and that just was, that's amazing. So that's a chance for the DM to really do that. Now, one of the big disadvantages, at least initially, is their saving throws, and this is why we have the idea of the party, because their saving throws versus spells are some of the worst of any of the party members. And so
it does get better, but I mean, and this is where the XP bottle that we were talking about before, where you've got the XP where most of them have that in and then they come out, and the fighters mostly that. When it comes to the saving throws, the fighter saving throw changes at level 3, then it changes at level 5 or something. It's only a couple of levels and it drops until, if you look at the middling levels of around levels 5 to 8, the saving throws, they're okay. They're not amazing, but then, they're back in line with the rest of the party.
Yeah, at equal level, particularly for spell, which is the one that tends to get them in trouble, because unfortunately you can be a 9th level fighter with 100 hit points or whatever, if you have a great constitution. You make one fail against a whole person, and now you're nobody. You're stuck, and you're basically out of the game, and
someone else is heat metal, and so the other person's doing a heat metal on you, and you're just sitting there like a turtle, and just like.
Well, that's Genie's favorite move, apparently. The friendly Genie forest, peaceful, loving
wood nymph. Oh, hello.
That's right. Oh, nice to see you. Now I'm going to make you bubble in your own armor. So I think that's the idea of the party. Really takes it, and we've come up with the classic fighters in the front, clerics helping, healing, and the thief and the magic user. The magic user is controlling the battlefield, and one of the things is to prevent their fighters from being held or charmed or anything else by doing this first, so that you're basically trying to take their defenses down. So there's nothing more sad than a 5th level magic user who could cast fireball. As soon as a fighter's on them, they're pretty much going to be done, unless they have some kind of wand or something they can cast. They can't cast spells.
At the moment, if you're able to either do N1 as a module, or you manage to find it somewhere else, that minor globe of invulnerability is a key point for magic users to have by the time they get to about 5th or 6th level. If you can find that and research that, then you just go pop, put that up. The whole party is just protected from fireballs and less.
They all just start hang. All of a sudden, no one wants to be near the magic user until they get minor globe, and then they're all just like, "Hey, buddy!" They're all really close to them, hanging out by them. Because anything less than spells third level or less are they're immune to it. So, what else we got to say about fighters? I think we're pretty good on the fighter side.
We haven't missed any obvious things like turning with the cleric, which
no, we didn't miss turning like with the cleric.
So
I'm
what
sure
are we
Ron.
missing?
The only thing that you might want to sort of, I suppose, think about is that the Gygaxian way of multiple attacks.
Yes,
is probably always worth mentioning, just because a normal person would only get one. Most monsters only have one, except for the occasional claw bite or claw horn, as we like the gargoyle or whatever. But when you get 5 to 13, no, you talk about the 5th level fighter that's suddenly against 15 kobolds. Well, imagine a 15th level fighter that's being assailed by an army of 0 levels. He's attacking or she's attacking 15 times.
Right, just wading through them. So at 7th level, assuming you don't use the book that shall not be named, the fighter is able to attack 3 per 2, 3 attacks per 2 round, which traditionally means you get your first attack in the first round, and then you get 2 attacks in the second round. So it's odd even. Now there is some variance to that. So if for instance you have a dagger, now you could dual wield the dagger or hand axe if you're using the traditional definition. So in that case, so let's say you're a 7th level.
That adds one attack to each round.
You could do 1 attack per round. That's one way. I've ruled it, if I'm being nice, well, if you're proficient 3 per 2 and you have the same weapon that's 3 per 2, you could then argue you could take 3 attacks per round. You could do it.
No, it only ever adds 1 attack.
See, David's too much of a rules. He's a rules lawyer. I'm always nice.
Well, it makes most. Yeah, no, because you're not going to have 6 attacks in. You're not going to go 3 attacks.
You get 3 attacks per round then, as opposed to it's really only adding 1 more attack. You get 2, and then you get 3 because you still get 2 on the first one. So you're really only adding 1 more attack.
I bend as much. I bend as much before I.
Okay, so.
Oh no! Please stop.
This is important. This is you're
I'm starting a Holmes Edition podcast.
Your player was going to ask for this, which is, hey, wait a minute. I'm 7th.
That's why I kill them.
That's right. Before they get 7th level.
That's why I did the TPK on you guys. I'm like, I can't. Dan, oh my god.
But Dan, yes. the head mess gets worse. The head mess gets completely worse. You got 3 attacks in 2 rounds, and you dual wield. Then you get now 5 attacks in 2 rounds. If the magic user has cast haste upon you, you now have 7 attacks in 2 rounds.
Okay, hold on. You gotta slow down here. Okay, so, all right, fine. I'll enter this mess. Yes. I was thinking about something else. So, very nice.
By the way, this is my game right now because my characters are right, Nico? They're 7th through 9th level, so they have 3 per 2 or double, and then Nico casts haste on them because he's the 9th level magic user.
He adds 1 extra. He adds 1 extra attack every round.
All right, let's go through. All right, I have 3 per 2.
Right.
But now I'm dual wielding.
Right.
So how does this?
It adds 1.
It adds 1.
In my campaign, you only get 1 extra attack. In his campaign, you get.
Well, if you allow that there's 3 per 2 on each, because it says your attack routine is 3 per 2 if you're proficient in the weapon.
So can I get 3 per 2 on both?
Well, that's the point.
Debate,
that's the debate. If you're proficient in the dagger, right? You're proficient in both daggers.
Right.
In the Dungeon Master's Guide, it says if you dual wield, you get an additional attack. That's what it says. Well, the assumption there is, well, because you normally only get 1/1. But if you get 3 per 2, why wouldn't you get 3 per 2? I'm sure someone in Dragon's Foot has spent 300 dissertations.
But your argument usually is if it just says you get X and it doesn't say anything else, you go with X.
Well, but it says you're in the when you go to 3 per 2, your attack routine becomes 3 per 2 if you're proficient in that weapon.
Yeah, I understand.
So the difference is 1 attack every 2 rounds. Because 1, you get 2 attacks, and you get 3, right? We do agree that in the second round, you would get 3 attacks. You get 2 with your primary and 1 with the secondary. Is right.
So on a 3 per 2, you get 1 attack on your first,
right?
Well, then 2 attacks on your second.
But
if you've got dual wielding, then it's 2 attacks and then 3 attacks.
Right. So you're talking about 1 additional attack in the primary. That's the difference in the ruling. Now, if you haste, now in the player's handbook, it says, if you read the player's handbook, it says you attack twice the amount. What David's talking about is you add an additional attack for haste. So again, it goes back to which book and which ruling you're going to use with that.
Well, the DM's guide sort of clarifies it and says, that it doesn't double, that it only adds one attack.
But these are huge differences. It says double so that's what it's saying. In the player's handbook, it says double their normal movement and attack rates. If you go to the player's
rate,
the DM's
attack
stuff,
rate. Got
attack
it. Right,
rate.
Right.
Right. So if your attack rate is 3 per 2,
Right.
per that, it's doubling it. If you go to
Right.
the DM's guide and you go to haste, let's see
And
what it
rate
says
would
there.
make sense to me
So-
because you're moving twice.
Yeah,
as
see, I don't
fast.
see anything in haste. So, Dave, you have to do some homework for me to show me where that is. Because I remember seeing it, I just don't know where it is. I tend to let people do that because fighters suck at 7th level. Compared to what a magic user can, there's 10 orcs. Even if you get 3 per 2 attacks, 10 orcs versus a 7th level fighter, he's going to win, but it's going to take a long time. A magic user casts a 7th level fireball and he's, thanks for playing, I'm done. So I give a little bit of a latitude, but I'm sure David, you'll quote out because I remember seeing something like that, but I just kind of
I'm just trying to remember exactly because it's a Gygaxian statement. It's actually a thing where he says to those trick. I'm trying to remember exactly whereabouts it is. I'm just looking through.
Well, we don't need to look at that.
DM's
but
guide now.
I'm 99% positive you're right. I just what I say is, again, I'm trying to give fighters more things because in general, if you don't change their experience points, and the other thing I also do is I just allow them to have specialization and from the book that shall not be named. So but that does change.
Which I get that, and that's fair enough. And I mean, there's a degree of, I understand that.
The problem is you change the game a little bit. The orc, which would take normally one, orc could survive one hit. If you have a specialized fighter, he's probably not going to survive that hit anymore. So now the problem you have to deal with is you have more orcs. If you're not careful, if the fighter goes down, it's what would have been a normal fight now is a party wipe because there's too many guys.
That's the TPK.
Yeah. So so this is kind of, I don't call it advanced DMing, but these are some of the things when you tweak the game for your style, you have to be cognizant of it. If your players, I want to fight and bash through people. Okay, well now if it doesn't work out for you, you're overwhelmed and you could die horribly. I'm sorry, Dan. You look like you're not.
That's right. We're about to.
Turning.
We haven't got to the crazy part about the multiple attacks per round. So when you're at the point where you've got, let's say that you're a 9th level dwarven fighter, and you're up against a bunch of city militia, which are all 0 level. So the dwarf attacks them 9 times every round.
Yeah. The Lord. I'm a Lord.
But the way that it's calculated, you have attacks before the initiative round and after the initiative round.
Right.
You have to get your head mess around what is considered the initiative round. So it's like the second attack that happens at the end. So you've got like the little bit of initiative where they talk about the steps A through E or A through H, whatever it is, where you've got the parlay, you've got the move, you've got this casting spells, and all of that. That's all part of the initiative-led section. And then you've got, when you're doing your multiple attacks, you're attacking before that, during that, and after that.
That's right. So that's the way
But you're not moving, you're just attacking. So if you're not in space...
Yeah. So so the scenario that he's talking about, which I agree if I understand him, you have 9 city guards... and you're not pummeling them, right? You're not using weaponless combat, which is another story. You have 9 city guards. They must be small city guards because a dwarf is technically, he's medium. So you got, let's say he has 9 halfling town guard beating up this 9th level dwarf. So there's 9 of them, or there's 8 of them around it. What he's saying is he gets 9 attacks per round against those creatures. You take the 9 and you basically divide it by 3. You get 3 in the beginning. Then the initiative roll determines if those 3 become before, after, and then you get 3 at the end. You don't get all 9 in the beginning.
And it's not 4-1-4.
Well,
you don't just roll a bunch of dice all in the one hit. You just get before, during, and then.
So
But you can't move until the movement section. So if you need to engage with that group, then you lose whatever's beforehand.
sure.
Then you can engage, and then you get whatever's after that. So
You could do
it's
414.
very
That's up to you as the DM. I think in the attic rules, which we've used before, they show you the multi-attack. They break it down. But if you have 3 attacks, you would do 1 before, 1 in the middle, and 1 after.
Can I change it? So can I declare that I'm going to use my 9 attacks on 9 different? Would you guys? So in other words, I've got 9 attacks.
Yeah.
So I have to declare I'm attacking halfling number 1.
well, you get 9 attacks. Well, the point is, if you're surrounded by 0 level,
Yeah.
if you're surrounded by 0 level, you get 9 attacks.
Yeah.
You're not actually going to be surrounded by 9 guys. You're going to be surrounded by 5 guys. There's just going to be 9 of however many of, because you still got space of where your model is or where your unit is, and then how many can get around you, sort of thing. You're still going to be limited by that. So you're only going to have no more than
whatever the facing allows.
But if I chop down
side.
1, will you as the DM allow me to now redirect my next?
Of course.
Yeah,
okay.
of course.
Yeah,
Of course. That's the whole point. You've seen it in the movies where they just go swish, swish,
they
swish.
just wade
and
through it,
that's what it's reflecting.
I didn't know.
amazing.
I didn't know
That's what it's
because I declared it had to be more like this.
No, yeah.
Is it?
No.
There's nothing left of halfling number
And
1.
in fact, tactically, this is one of the things my players, I really want them to do is they'll say, I'm attacking this guy, and they have 4 attacks or whatever, 2 attacks. And they roll both at the same time. Well, they only need 1 attack to finish him off, but they declare they're attacking both of them. So they wasted an attack.
Right.
When they could have just said, okay, I'm going to attack once on this guy. Oh, I defeated
That's
him.
because they've got negative 5 armor class.
Yeah, well, they're 2.
And so they can just go, right, I'm maximizing all my damage onto this guy to make sure I remove that threat because I've got less chance of being damaged by anybody else. And I can just go boom, boom, boom.
At what point in time do the remaining halflings run?
Here's the frontage that David's talking about. The different. It's on page 69 of the DMG. It shows you how you're assuming, again, you're being surrounded by these halfling town guards who are offended by your presence as a dwarf.
Cyber Heston says that if you're really using the basic rules, you don't get to choose which enemy you attack in melee.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, wait.
From the basic rules?
I don't think basic. I think maybe it's with Dungeon. I don't know where you found that.
Well, that would be interesting if you made them randomly pick the attack. I don't know why you would do that for 0 level, but that would make it interesting. I've always run it where you're the fighter, you get to decide, because to David's point, because there's 0 level, you get a number of attacks equal to your level, and you can position them any way you want. It doesn't matter. That's as long as you declare how you're going to, I'm going to keep attacking this guy till he dies. I'm going to go to the next one.
Well, isn't it like in the movies where one bad guy comes in and attacks, and you kill him, and then the next bad guy
just
comes
like the kung fu movies, right, where he's fighting.
But the moment that the city guard sergeant or commander comes along, who's a first level, all that nonsense stops, and the dwarf's back to being 3 attacks every 2 rounds. Yeah. Until he can remove the first level, because he's no longer less than 1 hit dice.
Yeah, and see that's interesting. That's painful. That the way David's ruling it. So correct me if I'm wrong. So you've got, like you said, you have 10 city guards. One of them is the captain or the sergeant or the corporal of the watch. You're surrounded by the 8 or 9 towns guys. You get all your attacks. As soon as the corporal or someone who's a first level fighter gets into your combat, he's not allowing you to keep attacking the other ones. You're now go back to your normal attack routine.
Which makes it more heroic, because all of a sudden, as the fighter, you're picking out the strongest people, because you want to eliminate that, so that way you can just chaff, you can just cut the wheat down, sort of thing, so, and that's what you're doing. You change the
tactics, because I don't do that, but I like that idea. It's also scary because it's the whole thing of this action economy, which is, even if they're crappy enemies, 9 crappy enemies attack, or whatever, 8 crappy enemies attacking you, the law of averages says eventually they're going to hit you. And a longsword wielded by a 5th level fighter does similar damage as a longsword wielded by a 0 level. I think it does 1 to 8. There's no...
And realistically, city guard are going to have a broadsword, because I keep telling them the broadsword is the utility weapon. That is the thing. It does, on
average, more damage. That's right. It's going to do more damage. Yeah, absolutely.
DMG page 70, bottom of the page to the left.
Bottom 70.
Who attacks who?
Okay, page 70. Wow. Let's look. I love it. This is why we have a community. Page 70. As with, it's generally not possible to, it's attack in mass, this is about mass melee. Okay. You can use some, so what, is this Cyber Heston?
Yeah.
This is our liege from Sweden. I need to pull up his official title. I forgot. I think he's a Chamberlain too. Half our people are Chamberlains, even though they didn't want it to be. What he's saying, if this is the case, simply as with Misfire, it's generally not possible to select a specific opponent in mass melee. If this is the case, simply use some random number generation to find out which attacks are upon which opponents, remembering that only a certain number of attacks can usually be made upon one opponent. If characters of similar intelligence are able to single out, then the concerned figures will remain locked in melee until one side is dead or opposite. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I could see that in a mass melee scenario, which is kind of like this. They're kind of flying around and doing.
Well, now the question is, what's mass melee?
Is there a definition in the glossary?
I'm heading there. I doubt it. No, only melee.
Gygax is silent. Why do you do this to us?
He says you can call me.
I sort of always took. I mean, this is another sort of the DM line. If you've got two characters, so if you've got a range like two fighters against a bunch, that's why when you've got one fighter who's just surrounded by, then it's a little bit different. That's how I've sort of run it. But again, it's one of those, this is the beauty of first edition AD&D, where every DM gets to do whatever it is that they feel is the right thing for their people.
And I like the idea of, how much chaos do you want in this combat? Where, you're literally got 9 people. Is it like what Dan was saying, like the old martial art movie where there's a circle of people surrounding the hero and one at a time they come in and fight? Or that's more of the mob where they're just jumping on you? I'm sorry, what'd you have, Nico?
Cyber Heston says you can call me the Master for sure.
Oh, the Master. Yes, that's true. I forget. He's got a Master of Sweden. Is he still making his assault on Finland?
How's that combat going? Is that in his title? Is Master in there?
I think Master is in there.
The Master, his most august,
Master.
Yes, he's the contentious Baron of Sweden.
He's contentious.
That's right. He's coming out of Scandinavia.
Does anyone use list combat? So looking at the definition of melee in the glossary, as one often does, it is to be distinguished from list combat, which is between two opponents, which I believe has a different thing on, I think initiative. There's something different about list, but it's never fleshed out. I think it was a holdover from OD&D that kind of got left in there.
Yeah,
You're not biting? Not interested? I had to listen to all that about the multiple attacks and all those hypotheticals, and I bring this up and it's just like, giant crickets.
Crickets.
Yeah, giant crickets.
It's not as interesting.
All right.
So I don't know. I understood the words, but it's called list combat.
There's something called list combat. If you look in the glossary,
I don't know anything.
Melee is defined as combat with handheld weapons between more than 2 figures. This is distinguished from list combat, and it's italicized, which is
list combat, which is between 2 opponents. And missile combat, which is at a distance and involves thrown or propelled weapons.
And there is somewhere, if I grab out my handy rule booklet that I once was putting together,
if he's going back in terms of the list combat, that's more like a tourney.
Yeah, that's the way I.
You put your name on the list, and then that's who is matching against who, and it would be. A tournament style,
Right. Interesting.
But
I don't. No, we don't do that.
Yeah, because I think somewhere there's a reference to. I can't remember if it's initiative or somewhere. If it's list combat, something is different, but it's never told what to do. So.
What I like about why we talk about this, it reminds me of all these rules that I throw out all the time because I just don't have time for them. Because if I have 9 or 10 players. And I'm doing armor class adjustment and multiple attacks, and it's just you're talking.
I was never as a DM. I'm never precious about certain stats. So if I say to the guys, treat it like studded leather, they've already got it on their character sheets that it's +1, -1, or whatever with all their modifiers already. So all they need to know is what their modifier becomes, and away they go. It's like, you're up against a dragon. Well, that's like plate armor. That's just like plate armor. It doesn't matter what their armor class is. Dragon scale is just like plate armor. And boom, and away you go.
Gotcha.
You know, and that's why I think I realize I don't understand why people discard that and don't use those little minutiae rules. And it's the sort of game where if you used all the rules, it would be unplayable. You couldn't do it. You have to pick and choose and cherry pick.
You couldn't do it if you're the DM and has to do it all. I think if you have players who are going to help you, you're empowering them to keep this information because they're going to help you. If you have players who are either inexperienced or they're just casual gamers, I still have players, and I love them to death. Their AC's 4. I rolled a 14. Did I hit? You're a 7th level fighter. You hit. They'll roll again. I rolled a 13. Did I hit? Yes, you hit. You're good to go. And because they want to make sure they're it's not because they're not incurious. It's just they want to make sure they hit before they move on. Where I get other players, they'll almost hide the dice and like, oh, I hit, or like whatever. So if you've got players that you're playing with that you're comfortable with and they're doing that, that's great. Dan and I run basically an open table where we'll get people just show up and they'll do their thing. Oh, he's commanding something.
Oh, that's a hellhound.
I am sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, hang on a second.
Oh, he's summoning a creature.
I am. I'm just my son is still up at midnight. So I'm
commanding him to go to bed. Good for you.
Yeah.
So you were going to say
probably
something.
because you're so loud.
That's right. It's like,
can you keep it down?
Sorry, I didn't mean to shake I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay.
No, that was good. We like stuff.
I don't
like
know
that.
what the authorities are called in Australia for parental abuse, but we can put that on the chat. But that's good. We like seeing the random acts of parenting. I like it. See that, Nico? I'm going to do that to you. Command, be quiet. Doesn't work. I have no effect, David. My thing is not as good.
He's still sitting on the couch. Hasn't done anything. No, it's just a 17-year-old, not moving.
Do you have him? Have you introduced him to first edition AD&D?
Yes.
Oh yeah. He's run a game. He's run a couple of games. He's done a 5th ed game and a 1st ed game. He did the Cult of the Reptile God with his mates, and it was like a TPK.
That's what he said. David, when we first started corresponding, mentioned that his they played 1st edition. Have they moved to 5th? Are they still playing or?
He hasn't played much, but 5th edition is usually the edition that's the choice, just because it's the one that everyone. It's a little bit easier,
right? Well,
it's,
everyone should have their.
It's nicer.
Yeah, everyone should have their edition. I think it's the game is what matters. I think it's nice if people want to play 1st edition. It's just like the people who came 10 years before me, OD&D. That's what they played. Good for them.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but I don't. It's not like I actually think 1st edition is the best. I grew up playing
right,
it, and so that's
right.
what I like. Yeah.
So you had a comment.
There is a line in the player's handbook that says, when important single combats occur, then dexterities and weapon factors will be used to determine the order and number of strikes in a round.
There you go.
But I believe single combats is referring to list combat, but it's never fleshed out. And so I don't know that anyone. I agree with David that I think what Gygax was probably talking about was kind of this classic one-on-one, kind of like where Lane's character was fighting the cleric,
almost like a duel or challenge, yeah.
But not really a melee where you just happen to be fighting one orc at the time. But Dexter never tells you how to use dexterity as a weapons factor, so I guess it's up to you to figure that out. I don't think.
Well, dexterity is only. I mean, I found it just the other day. How many years have I been playing? I find this really obscure rule in the middle of nowhere.
Well, that's why we have you here, David. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't know the homunculus and mending. We're like,
this is a new segment. All right, we're introducing it from the land of obscurity. All right,
obscurity.
The obscuratron. The obscuratron is set to high.
All right, tell us.
There's one line in there where it talks about that when you're firing a missile weapon or using a missile weapon, your dexterity reaction adjustment is used on the initiative. So you can actually attack before the rest of the party or the rest of the bad guys or whatever.
If it's single combat. If it's single combat. Well
no, I think if it's anything, he's saying. If it's anything.
It's just anything. It's just if you're throwing or firing a missile weapon, your reaction attacking adjustment, which is at 17 dex is +2. If you roll a 5, then you actually move on initiatives. You attack as if it's 2 better.
I think
2 initiative points.
I think you find that on DMG page 64, maybe. I went through basically the books and I tried to distill all the rules. Yeah, a character making a missile attack adds or subtracts his or her dexterity attacking adjustment to the initiative roll. So, because oftentimes players believe that missile weapons go first. Now, I don't know if that's an OD&D and a Holmes Basic, where that comes from?
In the list, like in the where they go. So you've got the first thing you can do is parlay. The first thing you can do is talk to someone if you want. So you roll for initiative. You can choose to talk to someone, and they get a response from talking back. So that's they actually get to do something in your round, which is only talk.
Okay.
But then after that, you've got the number of the different things that you can do. So if you look at I'm just going through the list. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Here is avoid engagement, which is your flee, slam door, use magic. That's your first step. So if you win initiative and you haven't actually engaged yet, the first thing you can do is run.
Right. And
and then you've got the attempt to parlay. Then you can await an action by the other party if you choose. So you've got that choice of sort of doing reaction checks. Then you've got missiles, magical devices, spells, undead, and actions and all that sort of thing fall into category D of the initiative things. And this is what, when I was talking about before, and I was saying the initiative-led section, that's this bit here.
Right.
So this is between A and H is the initiative-led section, and then if you've got multiple attacks, they go before or they go after, but again in an initiative order. So that's the same thing if you've got throwing three darts. If you're chucking 3 darts, you're like the magic user throws 3 darts in because they got one weapon, they choose darts and they can throw 3. So they get to do 1 before the initiative, inside initiative, and then 1 at the end of initiative.
Right. And I think this is where John has done a really good job. He's really embraced that. So we will get situations where if you get 2 arrows, he's not allowing you to get 2 shots right at a time. He's doing 1 before initiative and 1 after initiative.
Because once everybody has moved into striking range or charge, then you're firing into melee. You're not firing a missile, you're firing into melee. And so that first step where you've got the party all scattered around a room doing something, and then the orcs come in, the person with the bow gets 1 shot, everyone else moves to engage. Well, now you're firing into melee if you choose or not. So
and with my players, they normally do and shoot their own guy in the back. But that's fun.
And
Go ahead, Dave.
A player character's dexterity adjustment also applies to surprise, which I think I often forget. Right. So because you could.
So the surprise rounds. So if you roll a 1 and I roll a 6, then that's normally 5 rounds of surprise.
Oh, I got this controversy going.
But then if you've got +3 onto your dexterity adjustment somewhere, then that goes to 2 rounds of the 2 surprise rounds instead.
We want to go there?
This up to you.
We've had this discussion.
We've had this discussion.
And I will tell so polyhedron.
Oh yes, polyhedron.
In fact, had it that way. The way Dave. So I don't read the surprise rules that way, and I don't know if we want to head down that road. The way I read the surprise rules.
2 hours and 11 minutes in, but who's counting?
Well, Sweden wanted a whole discussion on, so we should have a separate.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to parlay, right?
We're talking fighters here, people.
That's right. We're talking surprise and
all evidence to the contrary. Well, and we should probably maybe have a session. I can't believe I'm saying this on surprise,
but initiative.
And initiative. Yeah. Maybe someone can fill in for me on that episode. The way I read it is that it's only the difference in die roll if both parties are surprised.
Yes.
No, if one party's surprised.
I got both.
Yes.
That's my reading.
So if one is, because in the example it says that if you've got, they roll a 1 or a 2, they're surprised. And then if the other one rolls a 5, so the surprise difference is 3. So it's page 61.
Yeah.
So page 61.
Well,
so surprise dice difference. So if you've rolled a 5 versus a 2, then there's 3 segments lost.
Yeah. So so
the head mess comes when you've got someone who's surprised 1 in 6.
So David, I have the same opinion you did.
Yeah, but right there.
And the way Dan, being a professor and other things, has convinced me, you don't have to be convinced, is that the sentence before it says, if both parties are surprised, then the effect is negated or reduced, and then he looks at the table. So that's where he's saying that's only if, so his argument is, which I've moved towards that because I was like you, if both parties are surprised, then the effect is negated.
Then the effect is negated or reduced.
And so what he's saying is this only applies if both parties are surprised. That's his argument.
And then otherwise you go to, you're surprised the number of your die roll. So if you roll a 1, you're surprised 1 segment, a 2, a 2. I mean, it could get nasty if it was, some were surprised like 1 and 4.
Right.
If you roll a 4, you're surprised 4 segments. So that's the way I read it.
So our argument, well, he's convinced me, and I'm always willing to be unconvinced, that if you have normal monsters and characters who are normally surprised in a 1 or 2, the worst they could be surprised is 2 segments. If they're both surprised, then you follow the rule that shows there. Because unfortunately, then there's the other issue of this. The next chart on page 63 is all jacked up, right? We've gone through that round and round again. One of the examples we didn't understand.
One is switched around.
Yeah, one we believe is
well, because if you've got a ranger, the crazy bit is when you've got a ranger who's 1 in 6.
That's right. They reduce,
and then you've got so they've got a 1 in 6. So they're reduced by 1 in 6. They're not halved. They're actually reduced by 1 in 6. But the ranger is considered to be having an advantage during surprise. And so if you as a ranger roll a 1, you're surprised, right?
Yes.
But if the other person rolls a 2, then they are still surprised, but you also gain that you're at an advantage. So they are surprised for 1 segment.
Yes, I agree with that.
And you can and you cannot act
if you get that, because the ranger, yes, the ranger is surprised in effect, but the ranger has an advantage on the surprise table. It's like if the surprise table said that this particular person had a 1 in 8, which is 12.5%, versus the 1 in 6. This is when it gets messy. Right. Yes, you can both be surprised, but who's going to be surprised more would be the one who actually has the less advantage, like who's at a disadvantage. If you can imagine that, it's a head mess. It is a serious head mess.
Well, the big thing I don't disagree. I think the big thing is, unlike initiative, where higher is better regardless, with surprise, depending on how likely you're surprised, if you are surprised and if the higher number, if you're in that surprise thing, that's bad.
High
generally.
Is good unless you're surprised.
Right.
Then high is bad.
That's right.
So if you're surprised 1 to 4,
unless you're surprising the person.
Who do you have? And this came up in our game recently, I think, with Rob. Because who do you have roll for surprise? Because I think Rob's view, and I get that, was that you roll to see if you surprise the other party. So it's like you're rolling and you want to get a 1 or 2 for the other side.
Yeah, we always rolled it this. You rolled your own surprise, but
is that the way?
Well, the example that I always try and give is that you've got a party that are engaged in actions in a room, right? So they've come into a room and they're doing their thing. You've got someone ransacking a bookshelf. You've got someone trying to open up locks, and they're all doing their thing. And you've got a ranger that's sitting in the corner with the bow ready for anything. Then orcs come into the room. They just stumble into it, right? So it's both parties roll for surprise, because both parties could be caught flat-footed for any particular reason. The ranger could just be thinking, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this." Oh shit, there's stuff there, or there's so many reasons why there could be a flat-footedness from either side.
Right.
That you're actually rolling, because the elf in advance of a party, not in metal armor, adds 2 in 6 to the opponent's surprise roll for being surprised.
Yeah. See, look, I had a little footnote, but obviously David doesn't think it's wrong. I had a footnote that said polyhedron number 3 got this wrong, indicating that the party surprise has its roll deducted from the non-surprise party determined surprise segments. But so, more confusion. I thought this was interesting. This has nothing to do with anything, really. What kind of surprise?
It's surprise.
Polyhedron number 16. Note that boots of elvenkind, that should be R obviously, are only effective when worn without armor.
Interesting.
So polyhedron, which was RPGA's and touted as being official, says, you boots of elven. That's going to upset some people, isn't it?
That upsets everybody. Everyone loves wearing the plate mail armor with
the boots of elvenkind.
Yeah, or what about the thief that's got leather? So leather armor?
Right.
Leather armor doesn't work?
One of our guys, David, who plays in our game, would be that.
You need to tell him.
No, I'm not the DM. We're against the DM. Why would I tell him that? John, but of course, now that John listens to the game, John listens to this in between flights, so I'm sure he's going to tell David this, and he'll come back to you. So
Is he taking notes on surprise? Because then he can come back and explain to us exactly what it is we just said.
I think, you know, what's interesting, and this is all these rules. It's, again, you go back to whatever page 9 of the DMG. Besides that players should not look into the DMG or they're killed instantly. But there's the other thing is, look, it's your game. We try to run it as close. There's going to be scenarios, and this is not. If it was so perfect, we wouldn't need DMs to adjudicate things. We need them to kind of and what kind of game do you want to run versus how many players, how invested they are. I like the idea, and when I've done the thing with Dan's characters, you know, the players have this great plan and they want to get automatic surprise. I agree with you. No, there should always be a roll because, you know, as you're preparing, you slip, and that's what the surprise roll does.
In that instance, I would say that it's the other person who's the party who are setting up the ambush. They don't have to roll for surprise because they already know combat's about to happen. But the party the other ones, they do because they've still got senses. Right. They've still got smell and sight and touch and taste and everything else. It
should be automatic. That's the point.
Well, yeah, I mean, the classic example is, have you guys seen the movie Heat?
Oh, yeah. A long time ago.
Yeah, but Robert De Niro's character, Macaulay, he's standing on guard, watch, right? He's just did a hiding in shadows thing and just completely blacks out and just sort of hides in there. One of the cops in a storage container nearby makes a dong sound as his piece of equipment hits the edge, and he's just like, right, that's it. It's, you know, boom. He just moves and straight away because that's surprise. Right. You know, like he's not taken by that, and he just goes, right, that's it, boom, and then operation over, and everyone moves and scatters out and disappears. You know, I mean, and that's a classic thief move. Right. You know, sort of the whole hearing noise, and getting all that happening. But you know.
I like to think, and I know now we're moving to a surprise show, but surprise. But what I like to think that even if you are being really careful, I mean, if you know there's something there, I get it. But just because you say we're on alert, we're quiet, yeah, I think you can.
That's why it's 1 and 2.
You can still be surprised because you never know what happens. Oh, and I want to note this too because I thought this was interesting, right? So during a surprise segment, the discharge of arrows, bolts, or hand-hurled weapons is permissible at 3 times the normal rate.
Right. That's really nice. That's when I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
Because I always say you get your full attack round, but it's actually triple, which is
triple.
ridiculous.
DMG, page 62. Triple.
Triple the normal attack rate?
Yeah, and Gary's clarifications on page 38 said, so if there are 3 segments of surprise, the weapon has a rate of fire of 2 per segment, then 6 attacks could indeed be made thus.
6 attacks. Well, that's.
He said that's good. So
6 attacks each segment, or 6 attacks total.
He just said so. If there are 3 segments of surprise, the weapon has a rate of fire of 2 per segment. Then 6 attacks could end. I don't know. Does that mean 6? Yeah. I guess that would be 6 per segment, right?
Well, yeah, because that's
12.
That would be 18. You're literally doing the Legolas thing. You're just.
That's great. I love it.
Because the first thing says triple, which
yes.
I got that. That makes perfect sense. Triple. Then that would be 6 attacks per segment. But the way he just explained, it's 6 attacks for the 3 segments. So now I'm confused.
There are 3 segments.
That was not helpful, Gary.
No, that's his clarification.
That's clarification.
3 segments of surprise, and it has 2 per segment. Yeah, it sounds like that would be 6
Gary.
or 3. Yeah, that'd be 8.
That's why he's right
18.
That's why he's smirking at us. He's like, tricky monkey.
He's loving it.
Yes, he's loving it.
It's hilarious.
All right, so I think, is there anything more about fighters? Because I want to be respectful.
So back onto fighters. Last bits on fighters. I suppose the only thing I can think of would be that, like I said earlier, if you're an elf, if you're a gnome, a half elf, a halfling, you're going to be a multi-class. You know, you want that fighter to be. You want the fighter hit points to be supporting either the magic user or the magic user thief, or, you know, as a fighter magic user thief, or you want that, you want the weapons cabinet so that you can say, right, my halfling thief can now use a bow because, you know, they can't use bows as a thief, whereas when you're a fighter thief, you can use a bow. And so that's the sort of thing that's the only sort of thing I can think of, is just that if you're not going to say as a halfling, I'm going to be a pure straight fighter, because you're going to have a very short career.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're going to be, unless you're like the town guard or something, something weird like that. Dan, anything else? Or are we ready to wrap this up for today?
I think we're ready to wrap it up.
Okay, good. So let's talk about suggestion. You know, my suggestion is I'm gonna pass it off to David. What's your suggestion? Do you have a suggestion for us this week?
I do. My suggestion is that it's about inspiration.
Okay.
I just think that if you're one of the things that I suppose we're a bit older, some of us, you know, I don't know what all the listeners are like. I'm sure that they're all very similar in the way that we've all been raised, and we all get a bit older and we all get a bit more jaded and we all get a bit, it's this and it's that, and the energy for doing something. I was thinking about it. I still haven't had a chance to have a proper game from what, you know, you were suggesting last time to me, but I just think, go watch The Adventures of Robin Hood. Watch it with the eyes of, you know, the 12-year-old kid that you know, to be amazed by, you know, daring do, swashbuckling. Read Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser and, you know, the swords of deviltry, wizardry, and all that sort of thing. Look for something just to bring in that spark, you know, and just say, right, okay, that gets that energy up, and then that gets the enthusiasm up, and if you're lucky, it can carry you over to actually wanting to view some of these classes just from a different point of view. You know, I mean, we've all had fighters in all of our careers, either as players and as DMs. We've had fighters, we've had clerics, magic users, all that sort of thing, and you get very quickly cookie cutter. This is it, pop, 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 pop. Just think about trying to broaden it out a bit. And is there a better way of playing it? Is there a better way of doing it? And the only way to do it is by playing it. And the only way of doing that is to be inspired to do that.
Yep.
You know, and I just think that's my suggestion, is try and recapture some of that, what we had as kids when we were first into this game, and we were really diving into, whether it was the movies or TV or something. You know, there's something that hooked us originally into this game that we wanted to try and do, and I think that's what we've got to try and strive for.
Okay.
As we're getting older, we need to search for you.
That's right. That's great. Dan, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend Central Casting, Heroes of Legend by Janelle Jaques.
Okay.
It came out in 1988, and it helps you create a backstory for your character. So, you know, you randomly roll things about your family, about, different attributes. And so it helps, you know, how many siblings you have, things like that. So sometimes I think it's kind of fun to randomly roll things. Well, you know, I love random.
Yes.
And so, and then to work your backstory around things like that. I don't necessarily view that as taking away a lot of discretion from the players. I think providing that for the players can compel you to work with that and be creative with that.
Yeah, well, a good backstory is 80% player, 20% DM, because the DM still has to create the environment around what the player wants to do. The player wants to be the smithy son that goes off and joins the militia to fight the horde of whatever, gets into a battle and says, you know, screw this, I'm going to go and be a mercenary.
Or you're a limner.
You're like, well, that's you know, there's a lot that, you know, that can make the character want to move around. And some of our favorite characters in history and in literature and in legend, they come from everywhere. I mean, we all love Inigo Montoya. I'm sure that we've all seen
Princess
Bride,
exactly.
and we've all Dread Pirate Roberts. We all
not
love
Tony
that.
Montana.
So,
It's not Tony Montana. That's a
I was
different.
like, what's
Inigo
Scarface
Montoya.
got to do?
That's right. Can you?
We all
you
look
see my
up
little
to,
friend.
we like his
I
backstory.
look up to him. Look fondly at.
He's
Tony
got a great
Montoya.
backstory,
That's right.
humble beginnings.
That's right. Rags to riches.
An immigrant.
That's right. Immigrant's tale. It's wonderful.
and a chainsaw.
That's right. Well, I think the chainsaw was on him. I think, wasn't it?
No,
he was about to.
he survived
he
the
comes in to
chainsaw.
save. Yeah, he survives. But he wasn't using. They
he
were
made
like
a save
chainsawing
versus
his.
that. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. He just sees the blood on the window.
Right. He made a.
They were listening to the music, right? Oh, his buddy was out there listening to the music, and he sees the blood.
Yeah.
You see the blood.
Yeah.
Okay.
He survived that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes.
All right.
So
But
my suggestion is going to be, and I'm going to do a Dan here because Dan's always class. So David, why don't you remind folks of the work that you've done, reviewing the classic books. Tell us what you've done. Maybe give an update on what you've done with your works and how they can get to them.
Sure. Yeah. Well, on my website, yeah. I mean, well, not yeah. On the web page, I suppose. I don't know quite its website, but I've put up a list of documentation for different races, for different classes, and the deconstruction of the rules from not exactly a rules as written, but trying to do as rules as close, just to try and make them playable. In some cases, I've done my best to interpret them without putting my own personal bias. Without, this is how I play it. You don't play it this, but trying to keep it to the letter of the rule as much as possible, because you want the rules as much as the player can handle, what the DM can do, and that's what it comes down to. So I've actually just finished the fighter was the last one that I've just done, which is the reason when you said that fighters, man, I'm all over that. I've just finished the fighter. And that's actually the last one I did. I wanted to do that one last because it had 30 lines or 29 lines of half column. And I really felt that you needed to do more, because there's so much depth to what you can be as a fighter. And I kept that to last to make sure that I had as much ability to pour into it as I did. The druid's up, the paladin's up, all those sorts of things. And I've tried to take them. Sometimes I've looked at it from a different point of view, so the paladin, obviously everyone knows the paladin is, just the holy warrior, but is that all that it entirely is? And why is it that it's only human, and why not the others? Right. And same thing with the ranger. The question always comes up, why can't I be an elven ranger? Don't the elves frolic and, sing and dance in the wood? Why can't they do that? But, there are reasons why. But it's just a matter of whether or not, as a DM, you want to follow those sorts of things. You can do whatever you want as a DM. You want to say, "Yeah, I'm going to have Dwarven Rangers." Go and have a Dwarven Ranger.
Don't bring that up.
You've got Dwarven.
Hold on,
he knows.
Someone just emailed me. Hey, I'd like to be a Dwarven Ranger. Thanks, David. Appreciate that. That's a group of Dwarven Rangers. No, you're right. I'm just.
Well, you should have said no in the first place.
Don't even start.
But and it comes down to exactly like what we were talking about before, where the ranger and the paladin are limited to what they can carry and what they can use and what they can, they've got an unlimited weapons and an armor closet. That's not a problem, but they're only going to carry X number of weapons on them. Whereas an elf, loves to collect magical tricks and loves to have this and is all, they've got too much self-interest to be the selfless paladin and to be the greater good style ranger, whereas a half elf would, because a half elf doesn't belong in either society. And so I tried to sort of put not so much justification or whatever for the rules. It's more of tried to bring it back. And with some of the classes, I've mentioned it before, where the magical questions that I've given to that I wrote in, and I've got some responses back and all that sort of thing. And that's exactly what I've put in as well, some of those bits. So like in the Ranger section, one of the questions that I asked and I got back information on was about the tracking. How fast can they track when they're tracking, and about tracking. And this is what I did, is it right? And then bang, I got back this whole chart of stuff, and which I've put into into the section on the Rangers. So, when something's an obvious track, it's this. And so, this is what makes an obvious track, and boom. And that's sort of what they came back from them, and that's what I've put in there. And so, I'm not too sure exactly who it was that was giving me these answers, but some of these things are just the way that they are. And so I've tried to expand on some of it. And so anyway, but sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. But
we know nothing about rambling.
No, we don't know. Rambling is...
It's prohibited on this show.
No. If you're not concise, you're not allowed on.
So in terms of character classes, I've pretty much put everything up there. The monk's up there now. And all I'm doing is I'm revisiting bits and pieces when I find a rule, or when I find I didn't write something clear enough. Because unlike Gary Gygax, I'm alive. So I can rewrite what I've written. Right. If I think that I've not explained it correctly, or if I've not, tried to put if I put a bias in there that I didn't realize I had, and I've done that with one of them. I think it was the assassin. I put too much of a bias in there, and I didn't realize. So I read afterwards. I was like, oh, I shouldn't really do that. I'm like telling people how to play an assassin. So then I went back and touched it up to take out some of my my own ideas on that. but I put a little suggestion on the back of all of them as to what I think would be that monk. Like obviously, Kane from Kung Fu is in the monk. And Aragorn is a ranger, and so on. And so you've got various ideas, and I've done with the fighter. I've very dangerously placed El Cid as a fighter rather than a paladin because of his behavior when he decided he was going to raise an army against his own king because he kidnapped his children. I thought, that's more fighter. That's not really a paladin, but I could be wrong on that, but that's sort
well,
of
I'm sure someone's going and Dragon's Foot is going to respond to that right now. Someone has had that.
The thread is starting.
That's right. The thread is, in fact, the postings have begun.
Well, Paladin is next
El
week.
Cid should be a paladin.
That's a good segue next week.
That's right. Next week will be Paladin. Right? Well, I will put a link in the show notes and on YouTube so people can come look at. Really, it's a labor of love that David is. A lot of us have opinions. And a lot of us have tried to simplify the game. Dan and with my minor contributions have added some things. But really, you've put a lot of effort into it. And what you find is when you read other people's work, you kind of, like everything, you can take it and say, "Oh, that's really cool. I can apply it." And sometimes you don't even think about it. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah. And I don't try and lay down the rules to say, look, I know more about this game than anyone else, or that I'm doing it right and you're doing it wrong, or you're doing it right, or what. This is very much a game where you can have three people who've been a DM for 15 years who've had successful parties, and they do have incredibly different playing styles, and they would be using the same three books, but it would be a different game, and that's actually something that I love about this, is just that you've got that level of complexity. I love it, and I find it's a limitation for it, because if we want it to live, we want the first edition version of this game to survive, then we have to help as many people to get past that initial boundary of everyone else saying, "Oh, it's so difficult. Oh, it was so bad. Oh, it's terrible." It was 1978. Cars were 1970. It's just the sort of thing that you've got to sort of look at. And because in 5th ed, obviously everyone's got 20 stats, and everyone just seems to be 5th level before they're I don't know how the power levels actually sort of equate. I'm sure that someone's done a 1st ed versus 5th ed chart and worked it all out, but it just, that 1st ed where you are the 15-year-old who's just been thrust into the world, and here's a longsword, and you're going to die in 30 seconds if you don't have a 10-foot pole.
And I think that's the spirit we still, regardless of the mechanics and how complex, it's that idea that the game generates your character, not the story that you do before. It's important to have a backstory, but your most exciting thing shouldn't have happened before you start playing. The interaction with the party is what you do. Okay, so in respect of your time, because it is now late there on the other side of the world, somewhere near Korea or wherever it is over there. Right. My geography gets very fuzzy past Florida, so. It's a good segue. We're trying to keep 1st edition alive because we're having GROGTALK October 11th through the 13th here in the Orlando area. So assuming we survive Dorian and we're not an underwater wasteland, you please come on down here. We'll be running 1st edition games. We'll be running Call of Cthulhu, Paranoia, all the games from the late 70s and 80s that our friends want to run. We've had some good response. If you want to run a game, you have till September 15th to submit that. I have a couple of people. The tournament's actually filling out a little bit, so I'm pretty excited. There's also be 5th edition miniatures like Warhammer 40K. There'll be tabletop games. We expect hundreds of people there, not for our specific thing, but we're part of this big event. So if you're in the Orlando area or near the Orlando area, and we would love to see you. So we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, at GROGTALK. We have our website, GROGCon. You can listen to us on our podcast, Google Play, iTunes. Please review, like, and subscribe. I know everyone asks, but that I think we have a lot of fun here. Because of this, we've met David, who's a dear friend of ours. So it's a lot of fun to do this. If you want to be a guest, just email us at info@grogcon.
We have no standards.
We have, basically we have, you have to have Skype.
Oh, it's good to
You
know.
have to have Skype. You have to have Skype.
Nothing personal.
That's right. He's still here.
The bar's set really
That's right.
low.
David's like, I'm still here. I haven't hung up. Yeah.
Oh,
we'll take anyone.
I thought that he'd been disconnected.
That's right.
Oops, that's
So,
awkward.
That was that technology stuff. You're still figuring it out.
as our guest, you get to roll the D10 to see how well our
this episode was.
how good this episode is.
Yes,
So
there it is.
make it count.
Now, here's an important question that I want to ask everybody out there. Sorry, but one last thing. In terms of rolling dice, do you think that's a roll?
Oh, that's horrible. No,
No, that's not a roll.
That's not a roll.
See,
You gotta shake
no.
it. Yes,
That's a
no.
roll.
That's a drop.
That's a
you
drop.
drop your dice, right?
That's right.
That's
No, because that's people like they want to try to do one of these, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the metal dice are good for. That's why you get metal dice. Look at this. I need a 6.
Just 6. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah. That's
All right,
that's
so here we
my
go.
that's my
We're
pro
ready.
tip. Beware,
ready?
people.
It's going to be like one of.
No.
I couldn't even.
I felt
hit the
this.
giant
No,
toes,
this
That's
was
right.
at
I
least.
couldn't even. Hit the
This
giant
was at
toes,
least
so.
a 4.
Whoa! Nice.
9.
Oh, hey.
Another 9.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's as good as last. I think last week's episode.
We've had a good streak, so that's
Why don't we
good.
have more? We should have more people viewing and listening for this good.
We have the important people. So,
right.
anything on the chat? Anything interesting before we sign out?
Cyber Heston just wanted to say, hey, thanks for making my heraldry more Swedish, by the way.
That's right. Yes, I refixed. If you go on the Heraldry page, I almost made it. Well, I was planning for him to take Finland, so I made his.
You're jumping the gun a little.
Right, but I've now refixed it to have more of the colors of Sweden. I did initially it was just random colors, but then I probably should have put more of the Australian colors in for David's thing. So
Hey.
So nobody would have known. It's red, white, and blue.
That's right.
Same as yours.
Yeah,
Everyone would have gone, oh.
yeah, it's all
go with-
After a while, you run
go
out
with
of
the
colors for that.
Hey,
And
now I have one final question.
Okay.
Is your son asleep yet, or is he still up?
No, I think he just crawled to
Okay,
bed.
good. All right.
20 to 1 in the
it is 1:45 there, so we've got you up late. So David, thank you so much. We're gonna have
Thanks,
to get.
David.
I think we're gonna have to have a special year-end event where we have some of our regulars. Maybe we can do a Skype game.
I think that'd be great.
Where you could do it. No, I'm just kidding. I'll be happy to run it. Or
If I'm running it, if you know it's level 2.
You could just go. You could just do a completely lazy episode where it's just you, and then you've got 4 other Skype people all having the conversation.
Right.
You guys can sit back and have.
Oh,
just,
yeah.
having
Like
your
you-
break-
like the-
you can sit there having your breakfast.
like the sea ghost.
Just going.
huh?
Like your no, with the sea
That's
ghost.
right. Just set it up and let them go for
We
it.
need hirelings.
We do special. They haven't been on in 3 months. We just turn it on and put whoever shows up, first person to show up. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
We totally outsource this. So
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, David. But I think we do need to have a year-end because sometime before Christmas will be our basically year celebration, and I think it would be nice if we did an event for maybe we can get Vic on, we get David on. I know Martin is maybe interested. I know Max from Quebec wants to get on soon. So maybe we can get 5 or 6. Based on the technology challenges, have a group of 5 or 6 internationally. Find a time that sort of works. Do a 2-hour thing so that poor David doesn't have to 3 a.m. He's trying to keep awake here.
You can just do a cardboard cutout of him sitting there.
After a while, yeah, he doesn't move anymore. It's like he's gotten awful quiet. He went to bed. So, David, thank you again for
Just freeze the camera.
Yes.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
right. Technical difficulties from Australia.
Yeah, I think we'll need to work up to that because I'm a little concerned. Having 3 or 4 Skyping international ones, how well they work.
You
Maybe
better
they'll
make
work
sure the
amazing.
production goblin is available.
Well, he'd be playing and running it too, which would be helping.
So yeah, you're talking about a game.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think
That'd
we
be
do a
great.
one shot with our favorite
You have
people.
to incorporate the monsters that we've talked to.
Right,
Like that.
that's all there would be in there.
A lot of giant
Toads and orcs and gorgons.
No, and that little. What was that little?
And Keyrin,
Oh.
wasn't it Keyrin? No, Shadoos.
Food creatures. They were the food creatures. Yeah, the food
yeah.
dogs.
Pushing men spells going off.
Gorgons.
Gorgons. The
Yeah,
Gorgons fail.
Yeah, so you already know you'll be an illusionist with change. What was that? Altars. What was the one we did that illusionist spell? Which one was it? We'll have to look.
Did we
through
have?
it.
I can't remember.
I'll have to look through it. But David will be a magic user with push and mending. That's
the only spells you have.
That's the only spells.
You have 2 spells. Your spell
with 1 hit point.
Someone stole your other spell.
He's
book.
like, I jump in front of the Gorgon and I'm going to bed. Good night.
I'm going to mend the Gorgon's tail to his leg. I'm going to mend his mouth. Can you mend his mouth?
That's right. Ooh, that would be.
Come on, right?
I'd give it a roll, saving throw, right? So
At least 20.
Well, well, think about it this way: you've got the Gorgon's breath is the gas, right? So push. It's almost like a.
Oh, there you go. You push it back on.
right back on, huh?
Ah,
I'd give it a chance.
backdraft.
I think I would. I just
Rule of cool. Of course you do.
I'm not that cool.
No, you don't like the rule of cool.
All right, David. Well, thank you so much. So on behalf of the rest of us here on Grog Talk, I'm James.
I'm Dan.
And we will see you next week on Grog Talk.